Hello guys and welcome to today's session. Today we are going to talk about Windows enrollment. So guys, let's just take a look over today's agenda. Today we are going to start with a discussion on what are the various ways of doing an enrollment of a Windows 10 device to Intune. Then I'm going to take some time and I'm going to discuss about what is Azure AD Registration, what is Azure AD Join, and what is hybrid Azure AD Join. Even though these are not directly components of Intune, but there is some gray area between what Azure AD Registration is, why do we need it, what is Azure AD Join, what is hybrid Azure AD Join. So I just wanted to clear the air. And once we have understood what is the difference between each of them, then I'm going to explain how can we do an Intune enrollment of an Azure AD registered machine versus how can we do an Intune enrollment of an Azure AD joined machine versus how can we do enrollment of an hybrid Azure AD joined machine. There is one more way of doing this enrollment which comes into this category, and that is enroll only in device management. In case you have done an enrollment of a Windows 10 machine, you might have seen that option. So we are going to talk about that also, and we are going to understand how is it different from the other three options above it. Then we are going to talk about, as I said, we are going to talk about how to enroll each of these devices, may that be Azure AD registered or joined or hybrid Azure AD joined, into Intune. Then we are going to talk about enrolling a device to Intune via group policy. And then we'll be taking a look over all the relevant logs and registries, how to ensure that the enrollment has happened. And then we are going to do a live demo. Okay, so we have got a lot in stock, guys, this time. So stay put, and I hope that there is a lot of new learning coming our way. Okay. All right. So in case you have gone through one of the previous nuggets wherein I explained the various ways of enrollment, one of those slides talked about various ways of enrollment of a Windows 10 device. So this is a deep dive and extension on the same. So if I had to broadly classify enrollment of a Windows 10 device to Intune, there are these 6 ways. There are these 6 ways via which a Windows 10 device can be enrolled to Intune. So I'm going to touch base on most of them. Autopilot and co-management is something which we are not going to discuss in detail over this nugget, because there is a separate nugget on autopilot and co-management and enrollment of a Windows 10 device using co-management or using Secm to Intune. So there is a separate nugget on that, on both of these topics. You might want to take a look over that if you're interested in the topic. Okay, so we are going to talk about what is manual enrollment. We are going to talk about what is auto-enrollment. We are going to talk about what is GPO. We'll be doing a deep dive on that, and we'll be talking about how we can enroll using deep link and company portal. Okay, so let's just start with the very first one, which says manual enrollment. This is a process in which the end user goes into start and then settings and then access work or school, and then instead of clicking on connect, he clicks on a hyperlink which is there on the right hand side of his screen, which says enroll only in device management. Okay, we'll see all of that, we will do all of that, but for now I just want to introduce you guys to this option. So in case of manual, or in the first case, in the manual case, the device gets enrolled to Intune. That is all that happens. Okay, the device is only enrolled to Intune, nothing else happens at the back end. Okay, when is this used? This is usually used, it can be used in a company owned device, it can be used in BYOD kind of a device as well, but it is usually used by organizations who only have a Intune license with them. Okay, who have a Intune A direct license, but who usually don't have a EMS E5 suite or O365 license. So who cannot make you, because the device is only getting enrolled to Intune. There is no Azure AD registration or Azure AD join of the device that happens. So obviously, if you don't have a Azure license, you will have to go with this option. Okay. The second option that we have is auto-enroll. Okay. What happens in this? How this happens, let's just talk about that first. In this, again, we will see how that happens, but for now, just know that there is a second way doing auto-enrollment, in which the end user will click on Start and then Settings, and then he will click on Access Accounts and then Access Work or School. And once he clicks this option, Access Work or School, and once he clicks on Access Work or School, he will click on that Connect button, and then he will enter his username and password. Once he enters his username and password, there's a common misconception around this. So I just wanted to make sure that we are getting this right. Once you click on Connect and once you enter your username and password, the device gets Azure AD registered. Okay, it does not do an enrollment, it does a Azure AD registration of the device. Once the device is Azure AD registered, then comes into the picture something called Mdm Scope. So this Mdm Scope is something that we set in our tenant. Okay, and if the user who clicked on Connect and who did the Azure AD registration, if he was part of this scope, then the device will be automatically enrolled to Intune. So in this Mdm scope, again, we will see how the scope is set, where the scope is set later on. But for now, just know that there is something called the Mdm scope and we can add users to the scope. Okay. So if the user who is added to the scope, if he goes into Start Settings, Access Work or School and clicks on Connect, then the device obviously is first going to be Azure AD registered. And once the device is Azure AD registered, since the user who did the Azure AD registration was a part of the Mdm scope, the device will be automatically enrolled to Intune. Hence, the verbiage that we are using for this technique is auto-enrollment. It is automatically enrolled to Intune. The Azure AD registration is not automatically happening. That is something which the end user is doing manually. But the enrollment is triggering automatically if the Mdm scope for that user has been set. Okay. If the user was not a part of the Mdm scope, then the device will only be Azure AD registered and it will stay at that state. The device will not, the enrollment will not trigger. Okay. So now I hope we know the difference between the first option and the second option. In the first option, the device was only Azure AD. The device was not Azure AD registered or Azure AD joined. The device was only enrolled to Intune. In the second option, the device was first Azure AD registered and then it was enrolled to Intune as the Mdm scope for the user was set. Okay. The third option that we have is doing enrollment of a device via group policy. Okay. What happens in this case is, again, we will do a deep dive on this and then we will talk about what is the prereq for doing a group policy enrollment. One of the prereq is, well, obviously if we are doing by a group policy, then it goes without saying that the device is a part of the on-prem domain, meaning it is domain joined and is targeted by a group policy, and the device needs to be hybrid Azure AD joined. Again, we will talk about what hybrid Azure AD joined is later on, how to set that up. But for now, just know that if your devices are joined to the on-prem domain, then they can be targeted via group policy, and that group policy will do the enrollment of the devices automatically. I mean, that's the entire intent behind having something like a group policy, right? Let's just say that you're the admin and you want to reset and you want to push a policy or configure something in the end device, right? You have 10,000 devices. One way is going into those, logging into those each 10,000 devices manually as an admin and making that change. The other option is pushing down a group policy from the domain controller, right? So all the devices in the domain will get that group policy and will behave accordingly. So similarly, if we don't want that the end user should have to click on start and then settings and access work or school, click on connect and then enter the username password, and we want to remove this manual intervention and this manual overhead, then we can make use of a group policy which is going to come down to the device and automatically do the Intune enrollment. Okay, so that is the third option. We will talk more about this later on in this nugget. So just know that this option also exists if your devices are joined to the on-prem domain. Okay, and the fourth option is something called Autopilot. Again, this is not a deep dive, this is a separate nugget, you might want to watch that. But in case of Autopilot, what we do is, this is basically for provisioning of a Windows 10 device. So what we do is we customize the out of the box experience of a brand new Windows 10 device, and as a part of customization of that out of the box experience, the device gets Azure AD joined and enrolled to Intune. Okay, so we are doing this for a fresh device and we are customizing the out of the box experience. It can be done for a old device as well, but the device needs to be factory reset. Okay, so that is the fourth option. This option also exists. Okay, if you have a Windows 10 machine, you want to enroll it, you can do it manually or via auto enrollment or via group policy or via Autopilot. Okay, the fifth option is something called enrollment via Secm, which gets them into a state of co-management. Okay, so let's just talk about a scenario wherein we had devices and the devices were on-prem domain joined. Okay, so we had the option of enrolling them to Intune via group policy. Okay, that was always there. Now we also have an option. Let's just say that these on-prem domain joined devices were managed via Secm. Okay, meaning that they had the Secm client installed in them. So instead of deploying a group policy, we can make the Secm client in the device do the same job which the group policy was doing. Okay, so the Secm client in the device is going to trigger an enrollment of the device to Intune. Again, what's the advantage? Just like in case of group policy, it is helping us enroll thousands and thousands of devices automatically to Intune without the end user's need of going into start and then settings and access work or school and connect and then entering the username and password again. So just like group policy, this is also automating the task of enrollment. The Secm, instead of group policy, the Secm client in this case is doing the enrollment. And well, again, this is not a deep dive, so I'm not going to talk about how that is done, how that is set up. This is a separate nugget. But I just wanted to say that for this option also, the device needs to be hybrid Azure AD joined. Okay. And the last option that we have is using something called a deep link or a company portal. So guys, just before we do the practicals or during the practicals, I'll just show you guys that for Windows 10 devices, we don't need to install any agent in the device in order to do an enrollment. Meaning, if you have already done an enrollment by now, you would have seen that for Android and iOS enrollment, you have to install an application from the App Store or from the Play Store called the Company Portal app. Okay. However, in case of Windows 10 enrollment, the Company Portal app is not needed. How is the enrollment happening? The enrollment is happening because the Company Portal agent, whatever job that agent does, it is inbuilt in the operating system. And instead of installing the Company Portal app, we are going into start and setting and access work or school, and we are adding a connection there. But we always have the option of downloading and installing the Company Portal app from the Microsoft Store, logging into it with our username and password, and then enrolling it just like we would enroll Android or an iOS device. So that option is also there. Or there is one more option wherein the end user can go to portal.manage.microsoft.com. So this URL portal.manage.microsoft.com is like a web version of the company portal app, if you would call it that way. So instead of downloading the company portal app in the device, the users can go to this web version of company portal, that is this URL link, and then authenticate over there. And if the user has the license assigned to him, then the user's device can be enrolled to Intune. Okay, so this option also exists. So I mean, the entire intent of this slide is for us to know that if we have a Windows 10 device in our hand, then there are these 6 ways for us to enroll that device to Intune. Which one is better, which one to use? Well, that completely depends upon your organization. The end goal or the end state is that the device is enrolled to Intune. Irrespective of which of these paths you take to enroll a device to Intune, it doesn't matter. I mean, there is no difference on the device once the device is enrolled. So once the device is enrolled, the functionality that you as an admin will have on all of these devices will more or less remain the same. When I say more or less remain the same, there might be some differences. When I say some differences, what I mean is if we did a GPO enrollment or an autopilot or a co-management, so these devices are tagged as corporate. Whereas if I did a manual enrollment, or if I did a auto enrollment, or if I did a deep link or a company portal enrollment, then these devices are tagged as personal. That's just a label that is getting added to the device, and then you can make use of that label once, I mean, in the Intune portal. But what I'm getting at is it doesn't really matter which way you are choosing. The end goal is the same, and the end goal is that the device ends up getting enrolled to Intune. It shows up in the Intune portal. Now you can push any kind of policy that you would want to push. May that be compliance, may that be configuration. You can make use of MAM. You can make use of any policies that you would want to make use of on all of these devices. Okay, when I say MAM, I meant WIP. So MAM for Windows is WIP. But you can make use of any of these policies and supervise the device. Okay. All right. So before we do a deep dive on any of these or all of these criterias and options, I want to take a moment and talk about the difference between Azure AD registered, Azure AD joined, and hybrid Azure AD joined. Okay. Once we have spoken about that, we will talk about how we can enroll each of these devices to Intune. Okay, so first let's just talk about what is Azure AD registered, also known as workplace joined. Okay, all right. So Azure AD registered or workplace join is used because of the following reasons. Okay, so let's just say that we have a device, and from that device we are trying to access any application which is there in Azure. Okay, so the user is authenticating, the user is entering his username and password, after which Azure is making sure that, okay, this is a legitimate user. But what about the device? Azure doesn't know what this device is, where this device is. It's a, I mean, if it's a BYOD kind of a device, Azure has no idea if you're trying to access that resource for the very first time. So the user has proven his identity, but the device is unknown. So the device also needs to prove its identity. Azure needs to make sure that it is trusting the device before it can let any user from any device access any application which is there in Azure. Okay, therefore we have this concept of Azure AD registration. In this concept, what we are doing is that device is getting registered to Azure. That is, the device is telling Azure that, hey, I exist. And Azure is acknowledging that, okay, I know that you exist, so that later on, if any user, after being authenticated from a device, is trying to access any application which is there in Azure, is allowed to access that application. Okay, what we have to keep in mind is this is when a device is trying to access an application which is present in Azure. Okay, if there is any on-prem application and if there is any user who is trying to access that on-prem application from any device, Azure is not coming into the picture, right? It is only coming into the picture when we are talking about any application which is either hosted in Azure or has been integrated with Azure. Okay, so this Azure AD registration part is not a prereq for Intune enrollment. We necessarily don't have to Azure AD register a device in order to enroll it to Intune. It's one of the options available. So if I go back to the diagram here, when this is so if we do a comparison between this and this, as we discussed, in case of manual enrollment, all that was happening was that the device was getting enrolled to Intune, versus in case of auto enrollment, the device was first being Azure AD registered or Azure AD joined, and then it was getting enrolled to Intune depending upon what the scope was set. Okay, so in both the cases, the device was getting enrolled to Intune, hence the fact that doing a Azure AD registration is not a mandate for Intune enrollment. Okay, but it is a mandate for accessing any resource that is protected by Azure, any cloud hosted application. Okay, so as I said, Azure AD registration is needed because once the device is registered to Azure, only then Azure trusts that device. Okay, once the device is registered to Azure or joined to Azure. We'll talk about what Azure AD Join is later on. More often than not, this option will be used for BYOD kind of a device. If it is a user's personal device, then more often than not, we'll be seeing that the end user is doing a Azure AD registration of a device, and then from that device, he is accessing any cloud hosted or cloud integrated application. Okay, so in such cases, what happens is more often than not, the end user from his personal device will be logging into the device using his personal account. And once he has logged into the device using his personal account, he will be entering his work or school account or his Azure credential to Azure AD register the device. Okay, all right. Use case, let's just talk about when would this actually be used. Let's just talk about a hypothetical situation wherein let's just say that I am a salesperson, I'm a sales engineer, and my KRA is that I have to go from office to office and give presentation about a product. Let's just say that I'm presenting Intune to my clients, okay, so that they make use of this wonderful technology. Okay. All right. So I'm going to one office, from one office to the other, and I'm carrying my personal laptop. Okay, when I go there, I have to give presentation on Intune. In order to do that, there is some data which my there are some information or some data which my company has already provided me, which I need to demonstrate it to the end users. Okay, I not only have to present Intune as a topic, I have to show them what is how is Intune exactly behaving. And for that, there is some data which is present in my organization. Now that data can be present in my company's on-prem servers, or it can be present. There is also possibility that the company has a on-premise application and they have registered it with Azure, thereby making the application available over the internet as well. Okay, so now what I have to do is I'm at a client location, I have a personal laptop, and using that laptop I have to give a presentation, and I have to access the corporate application present on the Azure. In this case, when I try to access that application from my personal laptop, first I'll have to get myself authenticated. So I'll have to enter the username and password. I'm authenticated means that I'm a legitimate user. But as I said, user has proven his identity, but the device has not proven his identity. So Azure will make sure that it is giving access only to a legitimate device, not just a legitimate user. Therefore I will have to make sure that my device is registered with Azure only then I would be able to access the application, which in this case is an application related to any document which is there in Azure, which is made by my on-premise admin, or which is, I mean, owned by my organization. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is this would probably be one of the use cases that, I mean, I'm trying to access any application. That application is there on Azure. I'm trying to access it from my personal laptop. I mean, typically for a BYOD kind of a solution, authentication is done, that's fine, but Azure wants to provide a second layer so that not any device can come and access that information which is protected by Azure. Therefore, the device has to be Azure AD registered. Okay. So over here it says that in the second phase, we check whether we will give you access or not, whether we will give access to the device or not. Okay. Cool. So Azure will authorize a device only if it trusts the device. And Azure trusts a device only when the device is Azure AD registered or Azure AD Join. We'll again talk about what Azure AD Join is later on. So Azure AD registration is that process of establishing that trust between Azure and the device, which in this case is my BYOD kind of a device or my personal device. So Azure once starts trusting the device, it will let that device access the cloud protected application. Again, this Azure AD registration is just so that the end device can access the cloud protected application. It's not a mandate in any way for a device to get enrolled to Intune. Okay. So once the Azure AD registration is done, Azure creates a record of this device in its database. It allocates it a ID, which we refer to it as Azure AD device ID. So all it will do is, in its database, it will create an entry with the device name, and whichever user did the Azure AD registration, it will map that user against that Azure AD device, and it will create a Azure AD device ID. Okay, that's all it does. Not much information it gathers, but after the authentication, so moving forward, if the end user is trying to access any cloud protected application and it is coming from that device, Azure will check and find out that, okay, this device is someone whom I trust. Therefore, it will let that device and eventually let that user from that device access that application. Okay. So Azure AD registration is a process by which Azure establishes that trust with the device. It creates an entry of that device or an object of that device in its database, and it maps it with a user and gives it a Azure AD device ID. It is needed so that any application that is protected by Azure, if that is being accessed by a device, it is allowed to be accessed. Okay, and this is typically for a BYOD kind of a scenario. All right. So once the device is trusted by Azure, what happens is Azure issues a certificate to that device. I'll show it to you guys in a moment that where that certificate can be seen. But Azure issues a certificate to that end device, and the certificate is, if you double click on that certificate, there are two fields, right? Issued to and issued by. So you will see that the certificate is issued by something called MS Organization Access, and it's issued to the Azure AD device ID. Okay. And this cert, if this cert is there in the device, it proves that this device is trusted by Azure, and it in a way encrypts the communication between Azure and the end device. Okay. If we unregister that device, that cert is removed from the device. In this case, when we are doing a Azure AD registration of a device, in this case, we are not making any changes to the device. All we are doing is, in our database, we are creating an entry of that device. We are tagging it with a name, we are tagging it with Azure AD device ID, and we are issuing a certificate to the device so that now the device is trusted by Azure. Okay. When we talk about doing a Azure AD join, we will see that there are some changes that can be made at the device level. However, in case of Azure AD registration, there is no change that we are making at the device level. Okay. So I hope that this helps us understand what exactly Azure AD registered or a workplace join is. So workplace join is the verbiage or the term that we use in case of Windows 7 or Windows 8.1. Now the term that we are using is Azure AD registration. Okay. In the registry, if you look in some places, you might still find the term being referred to as workplace join. But more or less, it's the same thing. It's just a change in verbiage. Okay. All right. So this is just a fresh device which I Azure AD registered. And once the device was Azure AD registered, you can see that there is a certificate which has been issued to this device by MS Organization Access. So all I did was I opened up the MMC and I added the current user. And then you can see that there is a certificate that has been issued to this device by MS Organization Access. And this is actually the Azure AD device ID. Okay, so the certificate is issued to the Azure AD device ID. If I have a fresh machine, and there is one important command that we need to familiarize ourselves with as far as troubleshooting of a Windows 10 device is concerned, which is dsregcmd space/status. Okay, so if we run this command on any device, it gives us a lot of information. It gives us information about the device status, it gives us information about the user status, it gives us information about the single sign-on state, and it gives us information, and it runs a few prereq, and it gives us some information. Okay, in this case, this is a fresh device, a fresh machine, out of the box machine. Nothing has been done on this device yet. We have not done Azure AD Join or Azure AD registration. We have not done anything. Okay. So when in this device, when I run a dsregcmd space/status, you can see that the device is Azure AD joined no, meaning that the device is not Azure AD joined, it is not domain joined, and it is not Azure AD registered. So over here, workplace joined. So as I said, workplace join is another verbiage or term that we use for Azure AD registration. So it is showing as no, no, no for all of them. Okay. Now, this is a screenshot of how we actually do the Azure AD registration or Azure AD join. So we go into start, and then we go into settings, and then we go into access, work, or school. And then if we click on connect, as I said, guys, if I click on connect, then what it does is it does an Azure AD registration of the device. Okay, I will click on connect, I'll enter the username, I will enter the password, and the device will be Azure AD registered. And if the user who did the registration was a part of that Mdm scope which I spoke about, then if the user is part of that scope, then the device gets enrolled to Intune. Otherwise, it is only Azure AD registered. However, if the user clicks on this hyperlink, which we will talk about in detail later on, then the device is only enrolled to Intune, not Azure AD registered. Okay. All right. So let's just say that if I have a device which was Azure AD registered, okay, I clicked on connect, I entered my username and password, the device was Azure AD registered. How can I enroll this device to Intune? So the question is how to enroll a Azure AD registered device to Intune. How can we enroll it? Well, obviously the first option is if the scope was set, then the device would have already got enrolled, right? That is what auto-enrollment is. If the device is Azure AD registered, it will automatically enroll it to Intune. You don't have to do any other step in order to do that enrollment. However, if the device was not in that scope, then we can make use of something called a deep link. It is a command. We will talk about that later, which will also trigger that enrollment if that enrollment did not happen automatically earlier. Okay, so in both the cases, the device gets a cert issued by Azure and the device ID is generated. Okay, that is how the device knows that it trusts it. So this is a device which has been Azure AD registered. Okay, so over here you can see that under under workplace joined, it says that yes, because the device was Azure AD registered, meaning it was workplace joined. And since the user who did the Azure AD registration was a part of the Mdm Scope, the enrollment triggered automatically. And over here, you can see that there is something called workplace Mdm URL, which is also populated. Meaning that the URL, this is the discovery URL, which this URL is something which the end device will hit in order to trigger the enrollment, in order to start the entire process, right? So this URL is something that you will see in the Mdm scope. If the scope is set for the user will be able to fetch this URL. If the scope is not set, this URL will not be visible over here. Okay. All right. So over in this case, what we did again, just to recap, we clicked on connect, we entered the username and password, and we did a Azure AD registration. Since the user was a part of the scope, the device got enrolled to Intune as well. So as the device was first Azure AD registered, the first thing you will see is if you go into the portal, if you go into Azure AD devices, you will be seeing an entry of that device, and over here under join type it shows that the device was Azure AD registered by this user. So this is what I was talking about. When you do a Azure AD registration, entry of that device gets created in Azure. It doesn't collect much information, just the operating system and the version, and the device gets tagged with the user. Okay, and it captures the registration date. That is all that will happen in case of Azure AD registration. Now, if the scope was set, only then the device will be enrolled to Intune as well. And if the device is enrolled to Intune, then the device will be visible in this tab also. So like in this case, you can see that the device was visible in this tab as well as in this tab because the scope was set and the device got enrolled to Intune. So over here you can see that this is the device name. It is managed by Mdm. In this case, it's Intune, and it is tagged with the user principal name, email ID, and the device is syncing with the service, therefore the last check-in time. Okay, so I hope you guys are aware that we have got these two tabs, and it is incumbent that we understand the difference between these two. Under all devices, we can only see devices which are enrolled to Intune and are managed by Intune as Mdm. Under Azure AD devices, we can see devices which are Azure AD registered and Azure AD joined. They might be enrolled to Intune, they might not be enrolled to Intune, but these are the devices that I'll be seeing over here. So some people think of it like Azure AD devices is a super scope and all devices is a subscope. That exactly is not true, because you can have, so if this was a super scope, this was subscope, that would mean that all the devices that are under Azure AD devices, they might or might not be under all devices, but not vice versa. But that is not true. You can have devices enrolled to Intune which are not Azure AD registered or Azure AD joined, right? The first option that we spoke about. Let me just go back and clarify this point. So in this option, what we are doing is we are only doing an enrollment to Intune. The device is not getting Azure AD registered or Azure AD joined. What this means is the entry will not be present over here. The entry will only be present over here. So we cannot say that this is a super scope, and this is a subscope. Both are mutually exclusive. What I'm trying to get at is any device which is Azure AD registered or Azure AD joined will be present over here. Any device that is enrolled to Intune via any way will be present under this. Okay. All right. So once the device is enrolled to Intune, there is a registry location that actually gets populated. We will talk about this registry location in detail later on, but for now just know that if you go to HKLM software Microsoft enrollments, then there are a lot of GUIDs that you can actually see. One of those GUIDs will contain the information that we are looking for. So once this device was enrolled, you can see that this registry entry, and you can see that this was the UPN that we used to enroll the device. Okay, so this will only be created if the device is enrolled to Intune. If the device was not enrolled, then this entry will not be created. If you are just doing Azure AD registration or Azure AD join, this does not get populated. Okay, so once the device is enrolled to Intune, the device gets one more certificate. So it got one certificate when it was Azure AD registered. This was the certificate that it got, MS Organization Access, issued by Azure. It will get one more certificate issued by the Intune service if it gets Intune enrolled. That certificate is issued by Microsoft Intune MDM device CA. Okay, so this certificate is issued by Microsoft Intune MDM device CA, and it is issued to the Intune device ID. So let's just now try to understand the difference between what happens when a device is Azure AD registered versus when it is enrolled to Intune. So the flow again is something like this. You clicked on connect, you entered the username, you entered the password, the device got Azure AD registered. When the device was Azure AD registered, the device got a certificate issued by MS Organization Access, issued to the Azure AD device ID of the device. At this point of time, an entry of this device was created in Azure, and it just had the name of the device, and it tagged it with the user who did the Azure AD registration, the operating system, and the operating system version, and that's pretty much it. But if at it will usually stop there. But if the Mdm scope was set, then the enrollment of the device will also be triggered. Once the enrollment is done, then the device's entry will be created under Intune. Once the device's entry is created under Intune, the device will get tagged with that user, and Intune service will now issue a certificate to the device. The certificate will be issued by Microsoft Intune MDM device CA, and it will be issued to the Intune device ID of the device. So the Intune, in this case, the device will have an Azure AD device ID and an Intune device ID. Okay. All right. And both can be tracked over here. If the device is unenrolled, this certificate is removed from the device. Okay. So that is all about what Azure AD registration is. I just wanted to make sure that we are clear on the Azure AD registration process, more or less used for BYOD kind of a device, also known as workplace join. Not a mandate for Intune enrollment, but if it is a mandate, if the end user wants to access any resource that is protected by Azure. This can be done on a fresh device which is workplace joined. I mean, meaning which is work group, not workplace join. This can be done on a device which is in the work group, or it can also be done in a device which is joined to the on-prem domain. Okay. So if I have a device which is joined to the on-prem domain, I want to Azure AD register it and then enroll it to Intune, I can do that. If I have a device which is joined to work group, that is, which is not joined to any on-prem domain, and I still want to enroll it to Intune, I still can do that. The process is the same. To click on connect, and then it will be Azure AD registered and then enroll to Intune. Okay, so I hope now that we understand what is Azure AD registered is and why do we need it. Okay, we are not making any changes in the device. Please keep that in mind. Okay, so now that being said, now let's just understand what is Azure AD joined. And then we'll do a comparison between how is it different from the previous option, which is Azure AD registered. Okay. So first of all, Azure AD joined, more often than not, will always be for company owned devices. So if you're from the on-prem infrastructure, you would have known that we have an on-prem domain controller, and we join our on-prem devices to the on-prem, and we join our devices to the on-prem domain. Okay. But let's just say that you have a corporate device and you don't have a on-prem domain. You don't have the domain controller. In that case, you have the option of, instead of joining the devices to the on-prem domain, you can join it to the Azure. So think of it like you don't have a domain controller. So instead of joining the device, the corporate device, to your on-prem domain controller, you are joining it to a domain controller or a DC which is present in the cloud, which in this case is referring to as Azure AD Join. Okay, so this is always done for company owned devices, and we are joining the device to Azure AD domain. We are not registering it, mind you. We'll talk about how it is different, we are doing a Azure AD join. Okay, so this is equivalent to joining a device to the on-prem domain, which we conventionally did. Okay, instead of joining it to the on-prem domain, we are joining it to the Azure because we don't have an on-prem domain to begin with, or even if we have it, we are, let's just say, getting rid of it or decommissioning it. Once the device, okay, so quick question. So once we are doing, let's just say, let's just go back to the conventional approach. I have a fresh device, the device is in the work group. How can I log into it? I can only log into it using a username, that user which is created on that device, right? I cannot log into it using a user which is created on the domain. I can only log in using using a local user, right? Once I log into it using a local user, let's just say after logging into it, I join the device to the on-prem domain. Okay. Once the device is joined to the on-prem domain, now how can I log into the device? Now I can log into the device using that local account which I used earlier, or I can now log into the device using any other on-prem credential as well. I can log into the device as an enterprise admin or as a domain admin, right? Which will usually have access to the device. Similarly, once a device is Azure AD joined, I can log into it using the local credential, or I can also log into it using my work or school account. So this work or school account is an account which is present in the Azure, either created in Azure or synced from on-prem to Azure, and it can be assigned a license. Okay. So what I'm trying to get at is, once a device is Azure AD joined, we can log into it using our work or school account or using our corporate credential. Okay. And just like in case of Azure AD registered, once the device was Azure AD registered, Azure was trusting the device. In case of Azure AD join also, Azure trusts the device. So in case of Azure AD registered, a record of the device was getting created in Azure. In case of Azure AD join, also a record of the device will be created in Azure. We'll talk about what is the difference between the first record and the second record. But for now, just know that a record of the device gets created in Azure as well. Okay. So that's there. And one more thing that we need to know is there is something called a PRT, or a primary refresh token. We're not going to go into the very details of what this is, but for now just know that once a device is Azure AD joined, the device gets a PRT, or a primary refresh token, which helps the device facilitate a complete single sign-on experience. So once you're logged into the device, so again the process will be, the device is Azure AD joined. It might be enrolled, might not be enrolled depending upon the Mdm scope. But whatever the case is, once the device is Azure AD joined, the device gets a PRT, or a primary refresh token. And every time we try to access any cloud protected application from this device, we experience a complete single sign-on experience, and we don't have to provide our username and password each time we are trying to access any application from the device. Okay, this is one of the advantages of doing a Azure AD join. The others will follow. Okay, again, not a prereq for doing a Intune enrollment. We can do a Azure AD join and then automatically enrollment to Intune by the Mdm scope, or we might not go down this route. Again, this is not a prereq. So again, a device does not necessarily need to be Azure AD registered for it to access the Azure protected resources. Even if it is Azure AD joined, I mean, irrespective of whether we are doing a Azure AD registered registration of the device or an Azure AD join of the device, in both the cases, Azure trusts the device, because in both the cases, it is issuing that cert to the device from MS Organization Access. And since Azure trusts the device is authorized to access any cloud protected application. So Azure doesn't really care whether it is Azure AD registered or Azure AD joined in order to allow that authorization. Okay, if the device record is created, as long as the device record is created, irrespective of whether it is Azure AD registered or joined, it will be authorized to access that cloud protected resource. Now let's just talk about this important component on and discuss what are the benefits of doing a Azure AD join. Okay, so again, what were the benefits of doing a Azure AD registration? The benefit was that we were able to access those cloud protected resource, and that trust channel was established between Azure and the device. What are the benefits of Azure AD join? That benefit is obviously there. So the device is trusted by Azure and we can access those cloud protected resource. Along with that, it has these benefits as well. We get a complete single sign-on experience. So every time we are accessing any application, we don't have to provide our username and password. We can implement something called a Windows Hello for Business. It is for better security. So Windows Hello for Business, if you would know, it is something like we don't have to enter our username and password. Instead of that, we can enable something like a biometric authentication, like a fingerprint or facial recognition or a PIN. Okay, so this is more user friendly because the user does not have to remember the complex password and enter it each time. He can just run his finger over the scanner, or can just come in front of the camera that is there inbuilt in the laptop, and then he will be authenticated. So Windows Hello for Business is something that can also be leveraged if a device is Azure already joined. Okay, we can make use of something called the device-based conditional access. So again, there's a separate nugget on conditional access. You might want to take a look over that. But instead of a user-based conditional access, we can do something called device-based conditional access and automatic device licensing. We can, if a device is Azure AD joined, we can make use of the self-service functionality, which is like the user can reset his password or make use of things like that. So he doesn't have to call the help desk every time he needs to reset his password or make use of these basic functionality. So if a device is Azure already joined, we can make use of that. We can enable something like enterprise state roaming, which provides the end user a unified experience whenever he's trying to log into any device, any Windows 10 device which is Azure already joined. So it is like kind of like we had a similar concept in our on-prem infrastructure as well, right? So we could configure something like a roaming profile. So every time the user would log into any machine, he would get that roaming profile which is created, which might be present. So he was not getting a profile created under C drive users. That profile was not created over there. It was getting created, let's just in a SAN or a NAS box, right? So every time he was logging into any machine, the machine was fetching that profile from the sandbox or that NAS box, and he was getting that unified experience. His desktop and all his files in the desktop were always the same. He wouldn't have to recreate his shortcuts or something like that. So this enterprise state roaming is more or less the same thing, that is providing the end user that unified experience whenever he's logging into any Windows 10 machine joined to Azure. And most importantly, by joining a device to Azure, the entry of the device is getting created in Azure, and therefore it is making the management of all the device entries in our organization better, because now they can be managed from a single place. Okay, so these are the advantages of doing an Azure AD join of a device. So how do we, let's just say that I have a device, the device is Azure AD join. How do I enroll it? Well, obviously, if the device is Azure AD join, then it would have been enrolled if the Mdm Scope was set. So the Mdm Scope is applicable for Azure AD registration as well as for Azure AD join. So if the Mdm Scope was set for the user who did the Azure AD join, the device will get automatically enrolled to Intune. Okay. If not, if the Mdm Scope was not set, then the end user again always has the option of enrolling it to Intune using something called a deep link. We will talk about what deep link is later on. Okay. So now I have a screenshot, and I just wanted to show you guys that once a device is Azure AD joined, it shows up in the portal at the same place under Azure AD devices. So you can see that the first device is Azure AD joined and the second one is Azure AD registered. The difference is not much. Under this column only we see we see Azure AD joined versus Azure AD registered. Okay, we see that difference. As it happens in this case, both the users in both the case are the same, and the Mdm scope was set for the user. Therefore, both the devices under Mdm scope show as Microsoft Intune. But that is not a mandate. If the Mdm scope was not set under the Mdm column, you would see as none, meaning the device is not enrolled to Intune and not managed by any Mdm. But all the other attributes of the device will remain the same in this page, and we will see under join type as Azure AD joined or Azure AD registered, depending upon the use case. How do we do it? We do it more or less the same way. So we go into start and then settings and then access work or school. And then instead of clicking on connect and then entering the username and password over here, what we will do, we will click on this hyperlink at the bottom, which says that join this device to Azure Active Directory. Okay. So if we just enter our username and password over here, it will do a Azure AD registration. But if we want to do a Azure AD join, then we will have to click on this hyperlink. Please keep in mind that you will be getting this hyperlink only if your device is not joined to the on-prem domain. If your device, because we are doing this because we don't want to join it to the on-prem domain. Let's just say we don't have an on-prem domain. So we are joining it to the Azure instead, the domain controller in the Azure, if you would take it that way. This option will only come if the device is not joined to the on-prem domain, and this is how we would be doing an Azure AD join. Okay, we'll be entering the username and password, and then it will be done. So once you enter the username and password, just like when you join a device to an on-prem domain, it gives you that intuitive prompt. Over here also it gives you an intuitive prompt when it says that you are joining a device to a domain. Okay, so you might have to I don't really recall whether you have to I'm quite sure that we have to restart the machine after we join the device to the Azure AD as well. I don't really recall, but I'm quite sure that we have to do that as well. You might want to check that out. Okay, so you just have to click on join over here, and the device, you will get this option which says that your device is joined to the on-prem domain. You can now sign in using your work or school account. So over here, since the device is joined to the on-prem domain, it is saying that you can switch user and you can sign into the device using the account, because now not only you can log into the machine using a local account, since it is joined to the domain, you can log into it using a domain credential as well. Okay, so over here it is giving me an option of signing in with my work or school account. As you can see over here, I sign into it using my work or school account. This is the ESP page that comes up, and then I'm logged into it. If I run a who am I, it tells me that I am logged in as Saurabh Sarkar, which is created in the Azure AD. Azure AD is the domain. Okay, now if I run that same command dsrh cmd space let status, it tells me Azure AD joined is yes, and a domain joined is no, because I did not join it to the on-prem domain, I only joined it to the Azure. Okay, and it has got a certificate as well from Azure, and these are the certificates, thumbprint and all that information. And since after Azure AD join, the scope was set, the device was auto enrolled to Intune, and hence we see the enrollment URL as well. Okay, the Mdm URL, which is ending with .svc. Okay, cool. And you can see that as a part of the Azure AD join, the account that was used to Azure AD join the device, it gets added into the local administrator group. So over here you can see that the account Azure AD/Tom was added to the local admin group, and there are a few other SSIDs also which get added into the local admin group. So if I, after doing an Azure AD join of a machine, if I go into the administrator group, I can see that the account which did the Azure AD join gets added into it, as well as there are a few other SSIDs also which get added. Okay, as far as the certificate is concerned, you can see that it gets the MS organizational access certificate and because the device was Azure AD joined. So you'll get that irrespective of whether the device is Azure AD joined or Azure AD registered, because the device object is created in the Azure and this is issued to the Azure AD device ID. And the device also, as the Intune enrollment also happened in this case because it was part of that Mdm Scope, the device got a certificate from Microsoft Intune Mdm device CA, and this is the Intune device ID. Okay, cool. So before I move forward, I hope that this helps us understand what exactly Azure AD Join is. Okay, Azure AD Join, we are doing this instead of joining the device to the on-prem domain, because let's just say we don't have on-prem domain, or we are decommissioning it, so we are just joining it to domain controller in the Azure, if you would call it that way, and it gives us a lot of more options that we can make use of. Like these, it gives us a lot of benefits that we can make use of, and goes without saying that now Azure trusts this device, therefore we can access any cloud protected resources as well, because the device is now authorized to access that resource. Okay, we will do a demo of this and we will do a live troubleshooting as in how to exactly achieve this use case. All right, and now the next topic that we are going to discuss about is hybrid Azure AD join. So you would have heard this term hybrid Azure AD join, and again there is some gray area around what hybrid Azure AD join is. So let's just do a deep dive and understand what this is. So there are two terms when it comes to hybrid. One is hybrid Azure AD join and the second is hybrid Azure AD registered. Okay, hybrid Azure AD join is when you are joining a machine to the local AD and you are joining it to the Azure AD. Okay, now, but then that might bring up a question that how can you join a machine to two domains at the same time? You actually can. You cannot join it to two on-prem domains at the same time, but yes, you can join it to Azure and the local AD at the same point of time, and that state is referred to as hybrid Azure AD join. Okay, there is one more state that can possibly exist, and that is hybrid Azure AD registered, wherein you're doing a local AD join and a Azure AD registration of the device using group policy. Okay, so we are not going to talk about the second use case. It is outside the scope of Intune. What I'm going to concentrate on is this one, hybrid Azure AD join, which is on-prem join plus Azure AD join. Okay, and in this case the Azure AD join is not being done manually, but it is being done using the Azure AD Connect tool. Okay, so you guys must have heard about the Azure AD Connect tool. It's a tool which is used for syncing all your users from your on-prem to your tenant. Okay, so the same tool can be used to configure the hybrid Azure AD join environment as well. Okay, so all you have to do is you just have to install the Azure AD Connect tool. Once you have installed it, as a part of configuring the tool, you have to sign into it using a global admin credential from your tenant. Once you do that, then you can sync the users like you would. Okay, so let's just say that is done. Let's just say that Azure AD Connect has already been set up for your on-prem and it is syncing all the users from your on-prem to the cloud. Now you wish to set up the Azure hybrid Azure AD join setup, as in you wish to get your devices hybrid Azure AD joined. That is joined, they're already joined to the on-prem domain. Now you want to join them to the Azure as well. In that case, what you need to do, you need to launch the Azure AD Connect tool again, and then you need to go to the configure device option. Once you click on that, you have to it creates something called SCP. So this is the screen that you're going to see first, wherein you have to make this selection. Select this radio button which says configure hybrid Azure AD join. Okay, once you click on that, what it does is it creates something called a SCP or a service connection point. And over here it says that service connection point is used by your devices to discover your Azure AD tenant information. If your devices are in a different forest, each forest needs a different SCP. Okay, so it's creating this SCP for you, and using this service connection point, the devices are getting synced to Azure and are getting joined to Azure. Okay, so once it is done, once the sync happens, when you go into Microsoft Intune Azure AD devices, as of now, the device is not enrolled to Intune. It is only joined. It is only hybrid Azure AD joined, right? So now if you go to Intune, if you go to Azure AD devices over there, you can see under the join type, you can see that the device is hybrid Azure AD joined. Okay. Again, the device is not enrolled yet. So I just wanted to clarify what hybrid Azure AD join is. Hybrid Azure AD join is not equal to on-prem join plus Azure AD registration. Hybrid Azure AD join is on-prem join plus Azure join. So I've been a part of a few discussions wherein people tell me that, you know what, hybrid Azure, wherein they have this misconception that hybrid Azure AD join is on-prem join plus Azure AD registration. That is not exactly true, because let's just talk about a scenario wherein you have a machine, you join it to the on-prem domain like you would. Now you go into start settings and then connect, and then you enter your username and password. Okay, what happens? We have already discussed this. When we do that, the device gets Azure AD registered. Okay, when you click on connect and enter your username and password. Okay, and if the Mdm scope was set, then the enrollment will trigger. If not, then it will not trigger, but that follows later. But let's just say that the Mdm scope was not set, then by clicking on connect, the device got Azure AD registered, and the device was already part of the on-prem domain. So what is the state of the device? The state of the device is on-prem domain joined plus the device is now Azure AD registered. But now if you go into the portal and check, you'll see that the device shows up as Azure AD registered, not as hybrid Azure AD joined. Therefore, it proves the fact that if your device is on-prem joined and Azure AD registered, that is not equal to hybrid Azure AD join. Okay, hybrid Azure AD join is something that you can, one of the ways of achieving that is using the Azure AD Connect tool, and what it does is it joins the device to the on-prem domain as well as it joins it to the Azure. Okay, cool. So you have a device. The device is now hybrid Azure AD joined, meaning the device was joined to the on-prem domain. You configured the Azure AD Connect tool, wherein you selected the OU. When you're setting up the Azure AD Connect tool, you can actually select the OU, and the devices in that OU will be synced to Azure and will be hybrid Azure AD joined. Okay, you can make that selection more granular, so to speak. So let's just say that the devices are hybrid Azure AD joined. Now, how do I enroll it to Intune? Well, there are a couple of options. First is manual. Well, that option is always there. You can always go into start and connect and then enter the username and password, or try to enroll it manually. You can use the deep link option, or you can download the company portal app and enroll it that way as well. The manual way is always there, but if the device is hybrid Azure AD joined, there are two automated ways as well. One is using Secm and the second is using group policy. Again, if you want to enroll a device using Secm, the device needs to be hybrid Azure AD joined, and the demonstration of that is already there under that co-management nugget. You might want to take a look over that. But under this nugget, I will actually demonstrate this option, wherein how can we do a automatic enrollment to Intune of a device using group policy. Just keep in mind that the prereq is the device needs to be hybrid Azure AD joined. Okay, so this is automatic way of doing it, so that the user doesn't have to follow a manual step. The device automatically gets a group policy, and the group policy takes care of how the device is going to be enrolled, using which credential it's going to get enrolled, without any user manual intervention. Okay, cool. So I hope that by now we are able to understand the difference between what is Azure AD registered, what is Azure AD join, and what is hybrid Azure AD Join, and what is the use case of all of this. Goes without saying, in case of hybrid Azure AD Join, well, the device is already joined to the on-prem domain. If the device was joined to the on-prem domain, it is a corporate device. I mean, in no circumstance you will be joining your personal device to the on-prem domain, right? It will always be a company provided device. So I hope that now we are having a understanding of when we do a Azure AD registration versus when we do a Azure AD join versus when we do a hybrid Azure AD join, how we do it, and once we have done it, how we enroll each of them. So now let's just do a quick comparison between Azure AD Join and Azure AD Registration. Okay, so as we have discussed, Azure AD Registration is something that we are doing for BYOD kind of a device, wherein I'm a salesperson. I want to access any information which is hosted in the Azure. It's my company's information. I'm authenticated, but my device is not authenticated. Therefore, I do a Azure AD Registration so that Azure trusts my device. It issues that certificate by MS Organization Access so that my device is now, that trust is established, that channel is established, and now Azure lets me access those applications protected by Azure. Okay, Azure AD Join is something which we do for company provided devices, and instead of joining the devices to the on-prem domain, we are joining it to Azure because maybe we don't have an on-prem domain, or maybe we are going to decommission it in the long run. So Azure AD registration. So this device registration is actually talking about AAD registration. Okay, so let me just write the term AAD over here. So it is AAD device registration. It is for personal, it is for organization. We both know that by now. Device types, well, Windows 7 and Windows 8.8 soon, I mean, going to be decommissioned, right? So Windows 10, you can Azure AD join a Windows 10 device. You can Azure AD register a Windows device, but you can Azure AD register a Android or a iOS device as well. Now, well, this might come off as a shock. How can we Azure AD register a Android or an iOS device? Well, there again is a separate nugget on MAM, but just to bring some perspective, when we, again, this is off note, when we are applying MAM policy, MAM without enrollment policy to a device, to an Android or an iOS device, the device is not enrolled to Intune, right? That is why I'm using the term MAM without enrollment. The device is not enrolled. Therefore, the device entry is not present in Intune. But once we apply the MAM policy, what happens in the MAM policy? The user logs, let's just say I have applied a MAM without enrollment policy to Outlook. The user logs into Outlook and then he gets a few prompts, and then the MAM policy on Outlook is effective, and the cut, copy, paste and all that behavior is governed by the administration. So in that case, the device undergoes a silent Azure AD registration. So if you're doing a MAM without enrollment for Android or iOS, you will see that the device undergoes a silent Azure AD registration and a record of the device gets created in Azure. Hence, over here it says that for Azure AD device registration, it can be done for Android as well as for iOS. And obviously Azure AD join means joining a device to a domain, right? May that be on-prem or may that be Azure. So we can only join a Windows 10 machine to the domain, right? We cannot join an Android or an iOS device. Hence this comparison. Provisioning. If you want to Azure AD join a device, you can make use of something called Autopilot. Again, there is a separate nugget on that. But in short, what happens is, if let's just say you have a brand new device and you want to autopilot it, right? So as the outcome of a autopilot process is the device is Azure AD joined, Intune enrolled, and as a part of the autopilot process, we customize the out of the box experience of the device. Okay, cool. Management for Azure AD registered devices, we can enroll it to Intune. That is, it can be managed via MDM. For Azure AD joined devices, we can seamlessly enroll it to Intune as well if the Mdm Scope was set for that device, right? Resources, where can a Azure AD device registration be used, or where can a Azure AD join be used? Well, it can be used for any user. It just depends upon what your use case is. If you want to use it for company-owned devices, you can go for Azure AD device, Azure AD Join. If it's for BYOD kind of a device, you can go for Azure AD device registration. But I mean, it's a call that we as an admin have to make. It can be done on any device, just depends what kind of device it is. Additional functionality, if you're Azure AD joining a device, you have the option. So again, there will be a separate nugget on BitLocker coming soon, how to implement BitLocker, but you have the option of storing the BitLocker keys in Azure if the device is Azure AD joined. Okay, and we have already spoken about what enterprise state roaming is. So I hope that this helps us understand the difference. This is again another chart. I just got it off the internet, which is doing a comparison between what Azure AD Join is versus what Azure AD Registration is versus what is hybrid Azure AD Join. Okay, so I mean, more or less the same thing that we discussed. Let me just write in the term over here, AAD. So this is Azure AD registered. First we have Azure AD Join, then we have Azure AD registered, and then we have hybrid Azure AD Join. So this is the hybrid setup. Okay, hybrid. So over here it says that domain join plus device registration. What I'm talking about is hybrid Azure AD Join and not hybrid Azure AD registration. So this is domain joined plus Azure Join. So let me just call it Azure A and then join J. Okay, so we are doing a domain join plus Azure join using the Azure AD Connect tool. Okay, so now let's just do a comparison. Well, Azure AD join, as already discussed, we are doing it for company owned device. We are doing this for BYOD kind of a device. Hybrid Azure AD join, meaning the device is joined to the on-prem domain. So this will also be for company owned devices because the device is joined to the on-prem domain, right? So you won't be joining a BYOD kind of a device to the on-prem domain. This is organizations, device ownership organization. This is also organization. Azure AD registration is done for a personal device. Azure AD Join done for Windows 10 devices. Hybrid Azure AD Join now done only for Windows 10 devices. Azure AD registration, as we discussed, it can be done for a BYOD kind of a Windows 10 device as well as Android and iOS device. We just discussed how we do that and why we do that. Provisioning, we can for Azure AD Join, we can do something like Autopilot, which we already discussed that how it comes into perspective. Hybrid Azure AD Join, we can do it via group policy. Azure AD registration, this is something which the user usually configures manually. Device login, if a device is Azure AD joined, then you can log into the device using the organization's credential. If the device is hybrid Azure AD join, you are authenticated against the on-prem AD if you wish to do so, because the device is already there in the on-prem domain, right? So the on-prem domain can authenticate it. Okay. Enrollment, well, this is an interesting stuff. This is an interesting point because we as an admin will have to deal with a lot of issues related to the management. So how do we manage a Azure AD join device? Well, if it is a Azure AD join device, we can easily manage it using MDM, and you can enroll it to Intune. How do we? Well, if you want to seamlessly automatically enroll it, you can make use of something like Autopilot. Azure AD registration, well, that needs to be done manually that I'm aware of. Maybe Azure, maybe there isn't some other way that I'm not aware. Again, it's out of Intune. But yeah, I mean, if you're Azure AD registering it and then the enrollment, if the device is only Azure AD registered, if the Mdm Scope is set, then the device will be enrolled. If the device is hybrid Azure AD joined and you wish to do enrollment, there are two automatic ways, as we already discussed. You can enroll it using Secm or you can enroll it using group policy. Resources, well, more or less it can be used for any device depending upon what kind of device it is. Okay, this was just a quick comparison between the both and comparison of the functionality as well as comparison of the use cases. Now we have something called enroll only in device management. We have already spoken about what enroll only in device management is. Let me just bring up the very first slide. So this option was enroll only in device management, and we already spoke about what this option was and how it differed from the second option. So this was the first option, this was the second option, and we spoke that in this case the device was getting Azure AD registered or Azure AD joined, and since the Mdm Scoop was set, the enrollment was done automatically. However, in the first case, in the manual case, the device was only being enrolled to Intune. The device was not being Azure AD registered or Azure AD joined, and we discussed that this is more often than not done for devices when the users don't have an Azure license, they just have the Intune license, and they just wish to make use of the Intune features. Okay, this is what that feature is, enroll only in device management. How do we do that? We do it the same way. We go into start settings, access work or school accounts, and then instead of clicking on connect, which would actually do a Azure AD registration, we click on this hyperlink which says that enroll only in device management. And what this does is it only enrolls your device to Intune, which in this case is our MDM, and does not do a Azure AD registration or a Azure AD join of the device. Okay, so in this case you cannot make use of any Azure feature, you can only make use of Intune's features, that is device management. Once it is done, you will see an option over here which says info, which means that your device has been enrolled. It has been enrolled using this credential. If you click on that info, you will be able to see all the policies that are coming down to this device from the MDM. You can run a sync from here. I mean, this is quite standard irrespective of how the device is enrolled. These options will be there. Okay, and the logs. So during the demo, we will be doing a deep dive on what logs to check and where to check. But for now, just know that there are two specific logs related to enrollment and Azure AD registration that we have to check. The first one is here right in front of you, which is device management enterprise diagnostic provider. So I'll show you guys where the location of the device it is. It is under Eventware and then Microsoft Windows and then Device Management Enterprise Diagnostic Provider. And this is a working log wherein it is telling you that the MDM enrollment started. And then this is the successful event ID 72, which shows that the device was successfully enrolled to Intune. Over here you can see that the request was sent, the request was passed successfully, and then the event ID is 72, which says that MDM enrollment succeeded. Okay. Once the enrollment is done, where will the device show up? Obviously, the device will show up under all devices, showing that the device was enrolled. This is the name of the device managed by MDM. It's a personal device, and then the email address, the time, and the UPN. Okay. Now the question is, what would we be seeing if we check it in this blade? So if I check it in this blade, I can see in under all devices I could find a device called FVM2, but under Azure AD devices I don't see any device with the name FVM2. Why is it so? Because the device is neither Azure AD registered now nor Azure AD joined. Therefore, the entry of this device did not get created under Azure AD devices. It only got created under all devices. Therefore, it brings me to reiterate the point that Azure AD devices is not a super scope and all devices is not a subscope. Okay, we can have devices which are only on all devices, meaning which are only enrolled to Intune and are not Azure AD registered or joined, meaning which are not there under Azure AD devices. Okay, so just a good to know information. If I run a dsreg cmd status, then this is what I see. And if I run a if I get the MDM diagnostic log, I'll show you guys how to get that MDM diagnostic log. If I get the MDM diagnostic log, then it shows me the information of all the policies that are the managed policy, all the policies that are coming down to this device from Intune. Okay. The registry for enrollment is going to remain the same. It is the same location, irrespective of how the device is enrolled. The registry for enrollment remains the same, and it is HKLM software, Microsoft, and then enrollments, and then there will be many GUIDs. Not necessarily the first one, but one of the GUIDs will contain the information that you're looking for, which contains the information on which UPN was used to enroll the device. Obviously, the device is enrolled. So if the device is enrolled, there's the entry of the device created in Azure, and not in Azure, in Intune. So if the device is enrolled to Intune, the device gets a certificate. It gets the certificate from Microsoft Intune MDM device CA, and it is issued to the Intune device ID. So irrespective, again, brings us to the same conclusion, irrespective of where, irrespective of how the device is enrolled, once the device is enrolled, it gets the same kind of certificate issued to Intune device ID. Irrespective of how the device was enrolled, you have to check the same registry location and the same logs. Okay, cool. Now it brings us to an important topic. We are going to do a deep dive on this, on group policy enrollment. So again, when I say group policy enrollment, I am actually talking about this option. How do we enroll in hybrid Azure AD joined devices? We discussed there were three options: manual, SCCM, and group policy. Manual, well, manual is just doing it manually, either by clicking on connect and then entering the username password, or using the company portal application, or using the deep link, which all will do in the demo. The second option is SCCM. That demo is already available under the co-management nugget. And the third option is group policy. So let's just see how this group policy enrollment works. Keeping in mind that for this to work, the device needs to be hybrid Azure AD joined. So what we'll have to do, we will have to create a group policy, and we have to target it to a OU, and the OU should contain the devices that we wish to get enrolled to Intune. So what you'll have to do, you'll have to go to this location, and you'll have to, which location, I'll just show it. I should have taken the entire screenshot, but well, irrespective, you have to go to the MDM option, and then you have to click on enable automatic enrollment using credential. So over here you can see that there are two options: device credential and user credential. The device credential does not work with Intune, so you have to select the user credential option. So before I proceed, let me just bring a little bit more perspective into this. You, in your domain controller, if this option is not there, if this node is not there, this MDM node, then you might have to install ADMX for that. I'll just show it to you in our Microsoft documentation from where you can download those ADMX. But once you download and install the ADMX, and there is a folder that you need to copy under the sysvol location. Once you do that, then this node will come up, and all you need to do is just need to double click on this node, go to the enable automatic enrollment option, and you need to select the user credential over here, and you need to enable the policy. What this does is, well, it is, as I said, the device is going to be enrolled to Intune, right? And if you're enrolling a device to Intune, there has to be a user who is doing it. So right now what we are doing is, we don't want the end user to manually enter the username and password. So what the group policy is going to do, it's going to use the username and password of the logged in user. So the user who is logged into the machine, the group policy will leverage that, and it will use that to trigger an enrollment to Intune. Hence we are making this selection over here that use the user credential. Okay, device credential doesn't work with Intune, therefore I'm not going to go into that. So let's just say that you made this group policy. Again, install that ADMX if needed. So let's just say that this group policy was made, it was deployed to a OU wherein the device was present. So all you'll have to do is, you just have to log into the device using a credential which has Intune license assigned to it. As long as that is there, what happens is, when the group policy comes down to the device, the group policy creates a scheduled task in the device. So after logging in, if you open up the task scheduler, you will be able to see that there is a node called Enterprise Management. It is under Task Scheduler Library, Microsoft Windows, and then Enterprise Management. Over there, you will see that the group policy has created a scheduled task for you automatically. And this scheduled task is the one that automatically does the enrollment to Intune. Over here you can see it says that schedule created by enrollment client for automatically enrolling in MDM from AAD. Okay, So you will see that there are a couple of other tasks also created in the same location. It will create a couple of schedules and which is used for enrolling the device, which is used for running that enrollment. And if I double click on that task and if I go to the actions or if I go to the triggers option, I can actually see what this task is doing. So what this task actually does is it runs the device enroller.exe. Okay, and this is the exe which triggers the enrollment. So again, what happened? I created a group policy. The group policy came down to the device and it created a scheduled task. The scheduled task runs this device enroller.exe. What this device enroller.exe does is it uses the credential of the logged in user and it tries to do a Azure AD registration of the device. Once the device is Azure AD registered, if the scope was set for the device gets enrolled to Intune. So that is the entire flow. Group policy, scheduled task, runs the device enroller.exe using the logged in user's credential, does a Azure AD registration. If the Mdm Scope was set and the user had a license, the device will be enrolled to Intune. And in this case, instead of seeing a 72, you will see a 75. So 72 is for manual enrollment, 75 event ID is for enrollment, is for no, over here also we have a 72. I don't think we saw 75 in the previous case. Let me just go back and see if there was a 75 in the previous case. No, there wasn't a 75 in the previous case. In this case, if the automatic enrollment happened using group policy or via using Secm, you will see a event message of auto Mdm enrollment succeeded 75 because it was done automatically. Enrollment via co-management, I already said, I mean, there is a separate nugget on that, but let me just bring a little perspective into it. What happens is, let's just say that you want to get a device co-managed. What is co-managed? As the name suggests, the device is managed via two MDMs at the same time, hence the verbiage co-managed. Meaning if the device is already being managed via SCCM and we want to manage it via Intune as well at the same point of time without removing the SCCM client from the device. That state is referred to as co-managed. So if it already has the SCCM client, we can leverage the SCCM client to do the Intune enrollment for us. So there is some setting that we have to do in the SCCM console, and once we do that, there is a policy from SCCM that gets created and it comes down to the device. Once it comes down to the device, it triggers the enrollment and it does the same thing which the group policy was doing. So if you're doing a auto enrollment via SCCM client and you want to get the device co-managed, it will also do the same thing. It will also create a scheduled task in the device. The scheduled task will run the device enroller. The device enroller will use the logged in user's credential. Well, this also works with the device credential, but I'm not going to go into that. But the device enroller will now run with the logged in user's credential. If the user had the license, the device will be enrolled to Intune and it will get into that state of being co-managed. Goes without saying, the prerequisite is that the device needs to be hybrid Azure Ad Join. Okay, so these two methods, using group policy and the co-management method, these two methods are used for bulk enrollment of devices to Intune. And goes without saying, more often than not, these will be company owned devices because for group policy as well as for co-management, the device was joined to the on-prem domain. And then we have the option of enrolling a device using the company portal application or the website or using something called deep link. Again, as I said, for enrolling a Windows 10 device to Intune, installing the company portal app is not mandate like it is in case of Android and iOS. So because the functionality is built into the operating system, but you can still make use of the company portal app if you wish to do so. Meaning there is a company portal app that exists for the devices, for the Windows 10 devices. How do we do that? there's that company portal app which is available, and there is a web version of the company portal app which is also available. So you need to go to the website portal.manage.microsoft.com. Once you go to this website from a Windows 10 device which has access to the internet, it will ask you to log in with a credential. So let's just say I'm using this credential. I enter my credential, I get authenticated, and then it gives me this page and says that you do not have any applications yet. The device is not enrolled to Intune. If you click on the devices section, you will see this page which says that you don't have any managed devices. If you want to enroll this device, tap here. If you click on this device, or if you click on the device, the enrollment will start. So this screenshot is taken for a user who did not have any devices enrolled. This screenshot is taken for a user who had a device enrolled. So this device is not enrolled, but over here it will show you a list of all the other devices that are enrolled by the same user, like it does in company portal app, right? If you open up the company portal app, it will show you all the other devices that has been enrolled using the user who has logged into the company portal app. So similarly, it is showing you all the other devices. So as it happens, this test user had enrolled one other device, an Android device. So it's showing up over here, but this device is not enrolled. So to enroll this device, you have to tap over here. Once you do that, it says that adding this device lets everything about Intune, which is my organization. Make sure that your device is allowed to access resources. Click on the add button to continue. If I click on add button over here, it launches it says that launch the company portal app. So it redirects you to the company portal application. You just have to click on open Microsoft account and it will redirect you to the company portal. I mean, it will just not exactly the company portal app, but it will give you the prompt like it would in case of the company portal app, or like it would if you click on connect. And now you have the option of entering the username. You enter the username over here, then you enter the password. The device gets Azure AD registered. Once the device is Azure AD registered, if the Mdm Scope was set, the device will be enrolled to Intune. Okay, so this was one option. So now it would bring up, so before I proceed, there is one point that I wanted to make. When is this approach exactly used? I mean, let's just talk about the use case. If we don't really need a company portal application necessarily to do a Windows 10 enrollment to Intune, then why is this technique even available? So one of the advantages of using this technique is, let's just say that there are some applications which has been deployed to the Windows 10 device. So you must be aware that if there is an application which is deployed to a Windows 10 device, there are two intents that are possible. One is required and one is available. What is the difference? If an application has been deployed to a device as required, then the application gets installed on the device automatically, and the user does not have an option of not installing the application. If an application has been deployed as available, then the user sees the application and he can install the application if and when he wishes to do so. But if the company portal app is not there, where will he be seeing that list? Like, I mean, if you have an Android or an iOS device, the same logic applies, right? If you're deploying an application as required, the application gets installed automatically, seamlessly. If it is deployed as available, you are able to see it in the company portal app. But where do you see it in the Windows 10 device? Because the company portal app is not there to begin with. Well, for that, you need the company portal app. So over here, as you can see, when I logged into this device, the first screen that I saw was, it was saying you don't have any apps yet, right? So if I had any applications made as available to this user, I would be seeing those applications over here. So that is one of the advantages of making use of the company portal app. It goes for both the cases, the web version of the company portal app or the company portal app, the software that you install in the device. So that is the advantage of making use of the company portal app. You can see the applications that have been made available to the user in the app, because there is no other way it can be shown, right? Okay. So that was the first way. You enter the username password over here and it happens. The second way is using something called a deep link. So deep link is nothing but a command, and that command is something which the end user needs to run in order to trigger an enrollment. So the command is ms-device-enrollment, and this is the command that you can see over here. And what happens is you can just provide this command to the end user as a hyperlink. The end user clicks on that command or this hyperlink, and the enrollment starts or triggers. How is this advantageous? This is advantageous because the end user does not have to go to start and settings and access work or school and then click on connect and do all that, right? Because there are more steps involved in that. Let's just say he clicks on connect and then he clicks on some other place where he was not supposed to click. That is going to run into many complications, right? So one of the other ways, or one of the this way is actually used for simplifying the enrollment process. All you'll have to do is you'll have to provide your end users this hyperlink. The hyperlink comes down to the device. The end users just click on that hyperlink, and then this opens up. So over here you can say I clicked on that hyperlink. I can either go to the browser and enter that hyperlink, or enter that URL, or if there is a hyperlink I can click on that hyperlink just needs to redirect over here, and you can see it gives me the same option which says that open Microsoft account. If I click on that, then it will again bring it brought us back to this page, right? And if I click on open Microsoft account, it will bring this page wherein I have the option of entering the username and password. The device will be Azure registered and then enrolled to Intune, right? So this deep link is also a user friendly way of enrolling a device to you in Intune. You can just send them an email with this hyperlink, and then you just have to click on that. It is more intuitive. Now let's just talk about the logs. We will be seeing the logs later on, but there are two logs that I spoke about that are very important as far as enrollment to Intune is concerned. One is device management enterprise provider. That is the first log, and the second is user device registration. So this is for MDM, and this is for Azure AD registration. So if the Azure AD registration is not happening, this is where you will start the research from. If the Azure AD registration happened but the Intune enrollment is not happening, this is where you will start the research from. If you clicked on that option which says enroll only in device management, wherein the Azure AD registration does not even start or is never there in the perspective, and if that fails, then you don't have to check this logs, you just have to check this one. Okay, so this is for the event logs. There is also something called a MDM diagnostic log. We'll see where that is, how to generate that. It also shows all the logs. It is also a logging that will show you all the policy that are coming down from Intune. And there is that registry location that we already spoke about. Event messages. There are some event messages also that we need to keep in mind. The important one is MDM enrollment. So if the MDM enrollment is there and you're doing the enrollment manually, then the event ID for that is 72. If you're doing it using Secm, or if you're doing it using group policy, then the ID for that is 75. Okay, there are a few other IDs as well which is displayed. You might want to take a look. So before I move into the demo, I hope that by the end of this slide, we are able to understand what are the different kinds of enrollment that are possible for a Windows 10 device, and what is the difference between each of them, and which one to use when, right? So I am going to demonstrate all of this now. I'm going to demonstrate how to do Azure registration, a join, a hybrid. I'm going to demonstrate how to do a group policy. I'm going to show all of them. But I know that this has been a long one, and this is going to be a long one given that we have got so much to cover. So, okay, buckle up your seat belts and let's just start with the demonstration. Okay, so before we start with the demonstration, the first thing that I wanted to show you guys is the Mdm Scope, and I'm going to explain you guys what the Mdm Scope is again. So when I go into portal.azure.com, on the left hand side there is something called Mobility MDM and MAM. This is wherein we set the scope. We need to be a global admin in order to see this. So when I go into Microsoft Intune, over here there are two options. One is the Mdm Scope and one is the MAM Scope. This MAM Scope is for WIP. policy, that is the app protection policy for Windows. We are not going to go into the very deep of what WIP is. There again is a separate nugget for that. But yeah, for MDM Scope, this is wherein the things are set. So what this means is any user who is doing a Azure Ad Registration or Azure Ad Join, if he is a part of this scope, then the device will be automatically enrolled to Intune. If not, then the device will stay as Azure AD registered or Azure AD joined. I mean, right now it is set as none. So by default, as of now, the enrollment will not happen. However, if I set this to all, or if I set this to some, and if I click on select group, then I can put in a group. And only when the user from that group is trying to do a Azure AD registration or a Azure AD join, the enrollment of that device will happen. Otherwise, the device will not get enrolled to Intune. Okay, all right. So this is the first setting that we need, that we might have to configure depending upon the way we want to facilitate the enrollment in our organization. Usually for Windows devices, this will be set to either all or to some. Okay, and please keep in mind this setting is only applicable for Windows devices. Irrespective of what this setting is set, it does not affect Android, iOS, or Mac. Okay, all right. So let me just quickly open up my hypervisor, and over here you can see that I have created two machines. So first I'm going to connect to the first machine and then start with the demonstration. So if I go into let me just log into this first. Okay. All right, so I'm logged into this machine, and well, the only prereq is this is a fresh machine, just booted it up, and the machine is joined to the on-prem domain. Okay, the machine is not joined to the on-prem domain, it's a part of the work group. So let me just show it to you guys. Right click on the PC, and when it opens up, properties, you can see it's in the work group. The first thing that I want to do is I want to change his name, because I don't want it to cause a confusion later on that which machine we are looking at. So I'm just going to change the name and restart it real quick, and then we will proceed with the enrollment of this machine. So the first thing that we are going to do, the first kind of enrollment that we are going to do is enroll only in device management, wherein the Azure AD registration or Azure AD join does not happen. Okay, so we will enroll this machine, check all the logs, check all the registry, check all the certificates before we move on to the second option, and then we will do a comparison between the first one and the second one. So the machine is back up. Let me just go into the CMD and do a host name. It is showing X2. Before I do the enrollment, there are a couple of things that I want to show you guys, so that once the enrollment is done, we can do a comparison. So I'm going to open up the event viewer. I think I misspelled it, EVENTVWR. And I'm going to show you how the logs look as of now, and then we'll do a comparison later on. And I'm also going to open up the MMC and show you the certs that are there in this device. So I'm going to add certificates, the user account, and I'm going to add the certificates, the computer account. Both of them, I want to show you both the stores. Okay, so both are added. This is the MMC, and these are the logs. So if I go into Microsoft, if I go to Windows, if I go to first user device registration, that's the log for Azure AD Join. This is the one, user device registration. Let me just expand it for you guys. Come on. Okay. User device registration and admin. Right now you can see that there aren't many logs. So for today, let me see the logs. So over here it just has some information regarding Windows Hello for Business, which is not relevant. See that Windows Hello for Business provision will not be launched because the device is not Azure AD joined. And I think that's the only log which is out there. The workstation service logged a device registration message. I don't know what this is. And no other relevant log is in there. Okay, so right now, as I said, it's a fresh machine. If I go into start and then settings and then account, and then access work or school, no entry is there that this is a fresh brand new machine, and nothing is there in device registration log. Let me just show you the other log which is relevant, and it is this one: device management enterprise diagnostic provider. Let's just see what is it that we see over here. uh, uh, uh. So the once a device is enrolled, we will see that the successful event message is something like 72. So the only event ID that I see as of now in this machine is 813, which is not relevant. It is just doing, I believe, some repetitive checks. But as of now, the device is not enrolled to Intune is the point I'm trying to make. Okay, and the last thing that I wanted to show you guys was dsreg cmd space slash status, dsreg cmd space slash status, the output of this command. So as of now, uh, 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 the device state is the device is not Azure AD joined, hence no. The device is not domain joined, hence no. The user state is the device is not workplace joined, that is device workplace joined means Azure AD registered. Other, please remember the other verbiage that we use for Azure AD registration is workplace joined. It shows as no. The device does not have an Azure AD PRT, and so not much information is there in a device which is not enrolled to Intune. And one more thing that I wanted to show you guys is the registry. So if I go into HKLM, software, Microsoft, and then enrollments, right now you can see that there are a bunch of keys over here, but all these keys are not populated. So you don't see much information on the right hand side. So on the right hand side, for this key, you don't see any information over here, right? I mean, it has the default ones. So what we can also do is, just to simplify, just for better understanding, let me just delete the stale entries. So now you can see that I just deleted, it doesn't delete the enrollment key. It leaves a couple of them by default. So if you're having any issues with enrollment, probably this is something that you can try. So right now you can see that under enrollments, there are only two keys and not much information is there inside of it. Okay. And I'm going to open up the MMC, and then if I go into current user personal, there is only Windows Hello for pin. There is, I mean, you can just ignore the certificate. No certificate from Azure has come down to the device, right? Or Intune. And if I go into local computer personal store, there is no certificate over here, right? So we have seen all these locations before the device was enrolled. So now we are going to enroll the device and then see all these locations again, and then see what exactly is changing once a device gets enrolled to Intune. Okay, so I'm going to go to accounts and then access work or school, and I am not going to click on connect and then do a enrollment. I'm going to click on enroll only in device management. Before I do that, let me just show you guys host name is x2. So let me just go to the portal and show you guys that there is no machine with the name x2 that exists in the portal. So I go to devices, all devices. If I type x2, there is nothing in there, right? And if I come into Azure AD devices, if I do a x2, there is nothing in there, right? Okay, cool. So let me just first click on enroll only in device management, and then I'm going to enter the username, that is test at the rate everything about intune.com, and then it is going to ask us for the MDM URL, because the MDM scope is not set, right? So if you're doing enroll only in device management and the MDM scope is not set, then this is wherein we'll have to enter the MDM URL. Where do we get the MDM URL from? We get it from the same location. This URL is where the device will reach out to and try to trigger the enrollment. So it is the discovery URL, the third one, MDM discovery URL, this one. It ends with .svc. So I'm just going to copy it and I'm going to go back to the machine and I'm going to paste it over here. And then it says that we could auto discover a management end matching the username entered. Please check your username and try again. If you know the URL, your management endpoint, please enter it. That's what I did. I clicked on next, and this is wherein the expectation is that the enrollment will start. It's asking me for the password. I enter the password, which I don't remember, so I'll have to 82411. Okay, sorry. Okay, and then I can do a yes, and then this is wherein the magic is happening. And if I click on got it, so the device is now enrolled to Intune, hopefully. So you can see that there is an option which says that info. So guys, just an FYI, to enroll a Windows 10 machine to Intune, just as we discussed earlier, we necessarily don't need the company portal application. We did not use the company portal application. I click on info, it gives me an option of running a sync, just like you would be running a sync from a company portal app. If I scroll down, you can see that there is a management server address. This is what shows to us that the device is enrolled to Intune. It's getting a whole bunch of policies as well, okay, which has been deployed to that user. Seems it's getting a WIP policy as well. Let me just take a look. Yeah, it's getting a WIP policy as well. So, I mean, we are not going to discuss what WIP is, but I mean, yeah. So, all right. So the device is now enrolled to Intune, right? So let's just do this. Let's just run a sync of the device once. And once the sync has run, let's just check all those locations once again. So first I'm going to uh, uh, show you guys, sorry, show you guys the certificate. So if I go into the current user personal certificates, you can see that it has received a certificate from Microsoft Intune MDM device CA. This is our CA which issues a certificate to a device which is enrolled to Intune. Okay, one more interesting thing, let me just go back to the portal and let me just come back here and then see if the entry of the device is now created. It sure is. X2. What is the device ID of this device? How do we find out the Intune device ID of a device? It's there in the over here itself, ending with 58. Or you can go to hardware, and then it says this is the Intune device ID ending with 58. And you can see that this cert was issued to the Intune device ID ending with 58. Okay, so the device is enrolled, but the device is not Azure AD registered. Meaning, if I go into devices and all devices, I'll be able to see the device over here. But if I go into Azure AD devices, I should not be able to see the device over here. Surely enough, we don't see the device over here because the device is not enrolled to Intune. It is only Azure AD registered. I'm sorry, the device is not Azure AD registered. It is only enrolled to Intune. Okay, all right, so now you can see that this is the cert that I was talking about, which gets issued when the device gets enrolled to Intune. Now let's just quickly take a look over the event viewer logs and try to find out what is the flow that happened when a device got enrolled to Intune by clicking on that enroll only in device management option. Okay, so I will go into first the user device registration log, and if I go to admin over here, you will see that there is no change. Earlier also we were getting the same event messages. Still we are getting the same event message. Nothing has changed. 11:56 Windows Hello for Business, that same event log and nothing else. So nothing happened under user device registration. Now let's just see if anything happened under the log that takes care about the enrollment, which is this one, device management enterprise diagnostic provider. So if I expand it and if I go to admin, you can see that there is a lot of activity that happened in this log. So at 12:03, so let me just go all the way down and then let's just try to identify what is it that happened in this login sequence. Okay, so I can see a few errors as well. So these are all 11:43. Current time is 12:04. So something is happening here. Okay, okay. These are still the old logs. So over here you can, this is from wherein I believe something is starting. It says that MDM session Mdm message sent, and I'll just show you the, okay, so these are some errors. It says that, let's just take a look over what this error says. It says that MDM policy manager during inbox found bad enrollment during merge, requesting merge, deleting policies for enrollment. Enrollment state is your file wanting to be printed was deleted. I'm not exactly sure, but it might be a relevant log if the enrollment actually failed. But as of now, my enrollment didn't fail, right? So I can safely ignore this log and I can keep going up. Okay. I'm just going to, I mean, the intent of going through the log is showing you guys a working set of log, that how it is supposed to look if the enrollment does not fail. Okay, so that we can do a comparison and see the variation from a non-working set of a device. So, okay, so over here, the policies are coming down to the device. So it seems that the device is enrolled by this time. So the log that I'm looking for is 72, which shows a successful enrollment of a device to Intune. So let's just keep looking, keep looking, keep looking. Uh, uh, uh. I mean, I could always run a search, but I just wanted to, I mean, show it to you guys the way I would be troubleshooting it. So this is wherein something is starting. So over here you can see that the authentication happened, and the first thing that you guys see is MDM Enroll authentication successful. It got the token it was looking for. Hold on, hold on. Okay, my machine is running a tad bit slow, so please bear with me, guys. Where is it? Come on. Okay, there you go. So let me just make a note of what are the things that are happening in tandem. So the first thing that you can see over here is that the MDM enrollment, MDM enroll, it says that authentication was successful, got the STS token, and then you see that certificate policy request was sent, and then you see that certificate response was processed successfully. So the intent is to demonstrate the working flow of log for a Windows 10 device. Okay, and the certificate enrollment response passed successfully. I'll just explain what is happening. Let me just quickly make a note of this, and then I'll explain that what exactly these mean. Okay, and then 58 provisioning succeeded, and then 72 MDM enroll succeeded. Okay, once the enrollment is done, then the policies will start coming down for the user. It says that session started for the user. So I'm suspecting that this would be the SSID of the user, and then the policies will come down to the device depending upon what kind of policies have been targeted. So if we check this at some point, we'll be able to see the WIP policy and the BitLocker policy, which I have specified, which I have targeted to this device coming down. And well, these all are not relevant. Okay, so now let's just, there were a few errors as well. Cool. So now let's just try and see what an working set of log is supposed to look like, and this is what is 72. Okay, so first the device is getting authenticated. Once the device is getting authenticated, the I mean, if you have seen the nugget on the enrollment, the entire flow, that the home realm discovery happens, and then the device, the PKCS generate a component, and the device generates a certificate. It goes to the Azure, gets stamped, and then that becomes the Azure AD device ID. And the same thing happens with the Intune device ID. The device receives two certificates. In case of Intune, it receives the Microsoft Intune MDM device CA, and in case of Azure AD registration, it gets the MS organization access certificate issued to the device ID of the device. So I mean, once that is done, then OMIDM protocol, Open Mobile Alliance Device Management Protocol, is what will be used for communication. And then the enrollment succeeds. Once the enrollment succeeds, the compliance will be evaluated, and then the configuration policies, the applications, everything will come down to the device. Okay, so now, so that is the set of logs. So until now, the conclusion is that we did not see any logs under user device registration because the device was not Azure already registered. The only logs that we saw was under the device management provider, and these are the logs that we saw ending with 72, which said that which proved that the device was successfully enrolled to Intune. We saw that the device got one certificate also from Microsoft Intune device MDM CA, and if we check the enrollment registry, then we'll be able to see that. Let me just go to view and then do a refresh. We'll be able to see that one more entry is created, and this is the entry for enrollment. Don't get confused by this entry which says config manager enrollment. This device does not have SCCM or config manager. This device does not have it. The only thing that is relevant over here is the UPN, and you can see this shows actually the UPN that was used to enroll this device. In many cases, you will be seeing something called a foo user. We'll talk about what a foo user is later on. But for now, just know that the device is enrolled, and this is wherein you'll be able to see the UPN that was used to enroll the device. Okay. And one last thing that I wanted to show you guys was the log. So there is one more kind of log that you can look at for a Windows enrolled device, and that is the MDM diagnostic log. So if I scroll all the way down, I have an option of creating a report under C drive users public documents. So I am going to go to C drive users, the username, and then, oops, am I at the wrong place? Sorry, public and then public documents. So under MDM diagnostic, this file got created just now, and this file gives us an information about. This is again another kind of log. So in some cases you might have to see the event viewer logs. In some cases you might have to see this log. In some cases you might have to see both. So this MDM diagnostic log contains all the contains logs for all the things that is happening in this device because of the Intune, the MDM which is Intune. So if I scroll down over here, you will see that the device has got, if any certificate, SCEP or PKCS came down to this device, it will show you that. And then under the managed policies tab, it will actually tell you the policies that are coming down to this device from Intune. So as of now, there is some data protection policies or WIP policy that is coming down to this device, under which I have configured the network isolation and all those stuff. And then there's a blocked policy, there is a unmanaged policy. So there is a whole lot of things. So this is a central place wherein you can see all the policies that is coming down to this device from Intune. Okay. And lastly, if I do this kind of enrollment and I do a ds reg cmd space slash status, there is nothing much that you will see in this case also. So it is more or less same as what you saw in the previous case. Azure AD join, no. Enterprise join, no. Domain join, no. Everything is no except these two states. Okay. All right. So this shows how we do a enroll only in device management, and in the portal, the device shows up only in the device shows up only under all devices and not under Azure AD devices, meaning that the device was not Azure AD registered or Azure AD joined. Okay, cool. And we'll have to cut this out. We'll have to cut this out. All right, so now let's just move to the second device. Let me just save this device for now, and let me just start the other device. And in this device, we are going to do a Azure AD join followed by enrollment. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to change the MDM scope now. So I'm going to go to Microsoft Intune. So the other way you can change the MDM scope is from here, automatic enrollment, and then I'm going to set the MDM scope to all, and the MAM scope is going to be set as no. So the expectation is any user who does a Azure AD join should get his device automatically enrolled to Intune now. Okay, all right. So I'm going to go to the device. This is X3. I'm going to rename it, and then let me just enter the password for the device. Okay. All right. So again, this device is in the work group and it is not joined to any domain. And let me just see the name real quick. Uh, Change. I'm going to call it X3. Okay. Okay. I'll have to restart the machine once. And then I'll show you guys what is it that happens in the device once the device is Azure AD joined. Okay, I'm going to use the same credential to join the device to Azure AD once the device comes back up. Okay, so right. Okay, so the device is back up. Let me just do a host name. HOSTNAME. X3 is the name. Let me just open up the MMC and then add a snap in. We'll just refresh later on and then see what is it that changes in the device once the device is Azure AD joined. User account, I want to add the computer store as well. Just wanted to show you guys the difference. Okay, all right. So now let's just do a Azure AD join of the device. How do we do that? And the scope is set, so the device is supposed to get enrolled automatically. So I'm going to go into accounts and then access worker school and then click on connect. If I just do a connect, it's going to be Azure AD registered. So I'll have to click on this hyperlink which says that join this device to Azure AD. You'll get that hyperlink only if your machine is in the work group to begin with. Okay, I'm going to give my creds test at the rate everything about intune.com. Okay. So now the experience that you're going to see is going to be a little different. Over here you see that it gives you a prompt and you have to click on join, which joins the device to the on-prem, not the on-prem, the Azure AD. Let's just say if it asks us for a reboot or not. I'm not exactly sure if a reboot is needed. No, a reboot doesn't seem to be needed. Okay, so once this is done, I have the option of logging into this machine using the Azure credential. So if I do a log off, I should be able to log into this machine, actions, and then control alt delete. Uh, uh, uh. Let me just see if rebooting the machine helps. Okay, so I'm just doing a reset of the machine because I mean by default it just doesn't give you the option to enter another username and password. So once I reboot the machine, I should be able to log into the machine using the cloud credential, given that the device is now Azure AD joined. Other user, see, it gives you an option to sign in using your work or school account. So I'm going to sign into this using test everything about intune.com, and the password. Okay. So the expectation is that the device should be showing up in the portal now. Before I get logged in, let me just show you guys that. So I can see that X3 is there, the device that I use right now. The compliance is still not evaluated, so it's still trying to evaluate the compliance. And if I go into all Azure AD devices and if I run a search for X3, I should be able to see this device as Azure AD joined, because the device was Azure AD joined and then enrolled to Intune. Okay, this is a ESP enrollment status page, so it actually shows you in detail of we have an option of blocking the user over here as well, not something that I wanted to do. So I'm just going to click on continue anyway. I'm just going to set up the pin. If it is mandatory, I do just want to skip it for now. Okay, so I'm at the device. If I go to CMD and type who am I, you can see I'm logged in using a credential in the Azure AD. So once the enrollment happens, there are a couple of things that happen in the device as well. So let's just take a look. The first thing is reg edit. We are going to check all the same locations again, and I'm going to show you that what changed. So I'm going to go to software and then Microsoft and then enrollments. And then over here again, these are all the nodes, but there is going to be one node which is going to contain all the information that we're looking for, the UPN as we saw in the previous case, and in the MMC also you'll be able to see some information. So let me just add the user account as well as the computer account, and then we will see all the stores. So So when you join a device to the Azure AD, you're making a change to the device, right? So you'll be seeing the certificates under the computer store. And over here, you can see that there are two certificates. One is from Microsoft Intune MDM Device CA because the device is enrolled, and the other from MS Organizational Access because the device is Azure AD joined or Azure AD registered. Okay, now let's just take a look over the event viewer and the command dsreg cmd space slash status. Let's just see the difference now. So over here, Azure AD joined as yes. It is not joined to the on-prem domain. If the device is Azure AD joined, then obviously it's going to have a device ID. Let's just see if the device ID matches. So the device ID was ending with 4E over there. uh, 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 if I go into, yeah, the Azure AD device ID matches with it. It's going to show you the Azure AD device ID because the device is joined to the on-prem, the device is joined to the Azure AD, not the Intune device ID over there. And over here you can see the thumbprint of the certificate which was issued to the device. And over here you can see something like an MDM URL. This is the URL that we actually manually provided to the device in the previous case because the Mdm Scope was because the Mdm Scope didn't come into the picture there, right? We did not do a Azure AD registration. In this case, we did a Azure AD join, and then the MDM scope was evaluated. And since the device was having a visibility over this MDM URL, the device was automatically enrolled to Intune. Okay. All right. What else do we have? One more thing that you need to keep in mind is once a device is Azure AD joined or a hybrid Azure AD joined, the device gets an Azure AD PRT or a primary refresh token. Okay, and this is what is used for single sign-on, I guess. Uh, is the device joined? Yes, and I mean, not much to see. Just wanted to show you guys that once a device is enrolled to Intune, this is how you'll be seeing it. Even if it is already registered and then enrolled to Intune, the only difference would be Azure Ad Joined would be no. The rest, more or less, the things will be the same. Okay. So now let's just quickly take a look over the logs. So in this case, we are expecting to see something under the Azure logs as well, that is user device registration, because there is a change that happened to this device from Azure perspective. So I'm going to go into user device registration. That's the one. And then you can see that has anything happened? Let's just see if anything has happened. It seems to be the case. Yeah, things have happened over here as well. So let's just check all the logs. 369, 369, it was there earlier. And then at 12:18 you can see that something happened. It says that the discovery request sent operation was successful. This is when it's trying to discover something so as to facilitate the Azure AD join. And then what happens here? It says something like the discovery callback was successful. So it's getting so it's sending out a request, it's getting a response, it's going to send out a request again, it's going to get a response, and then that is how the things will work. So let me just open up I don't know why my machine is running so damn slow. Okay, so let me just open up this log. The log that we are looking at is this one. At 12:18:55 it says a discovery request was sent successful. We'll go up one by one. Not a good idea. I mean, come on. Machine is running with 2 gigs of RAM. Probably that's the reason why I should have allocated it more RAM. Okay, so the discovery request was sent successful. Once it sends it successful, it says that the discovery operation callback was successful. It's trying to reach out to a lot of endpoints in Azure. You can see all of these here. A better example would have been capturing the Wireshark or the NetSH trace or using Netmon. Probably we will do a session on that as well. Okay, if I go up, it says that the initialization of the join request was successful. This actually shows that the device was joined to the Azure domain, which is everything about Intune.com, and the device has been Azure AD joined. Okay, the request was sent successfully, the callback was successful. Once the device is Azure AD joined, what happens is by default, the user who did a Azure AD join is added into the local administrator group of the device. Let me just show you guys that if I go into local users and groups, and if I go into groups and if I go into administrators, you will see that the user Azure AD/test, which I used to Azure AD join the device, was added into the local administrator group. Along with that, a couple of other SSIDs are also added. So over here you can see that it's adding a couple of SSIDs. And then the post join task for Azure AD authentication was successful and the registration has been done. The complete join response, the workstation is whatever. Okay, what does this one say? Okay, all right. So this is what shows that the device was successfully joined to the Azure AD. Let's just make a note of the time of when the device was joined to the Azure AD. So over here you can see that the accounts are getting added, meaning the device is already Azure AD joined. This is when the Azure AD join happens, and this is the timestamp. So let me just make a note of this. AAD join happened at what time? 2/11/12/18. So after the Azure AD join happened is when we are expecting that the Intune enrollment should have happened, right? Okay, guys, so now we are going to talk about enrollment of a Windows 10 device using group policy. Okay, so the way we are going to do it is I already have enrolled a Windows 10 machine using group policies. So let me just first take you to that machine and show you a working state. And then I will do it all over from scratch again. And I'll demonstrate that when we join a machine to the domain, then what is it that is exactly happening. Okay. So I have a machine called Z2, and I got this device enrolled via group policy a couple of days back. Okay. So you can see that it has been attributed to a user called user2 at everythingaboutinTune.com, and the device is checking in and is compliant and is looking all good. Okay. All right. So now let me just show you guys my lab. I have, for this demonstration, we just need two devices. First is the domain controller, which is up and running, and the second is the end machine. Okay. So this end machine has been joined to the domain, and it is getting the group policy it is supposed to get, and that group policy is triggering the enrollment. Okay. So let me just first take you guys to the group, to the machine. So this is the end machine. The let me just close this out. Okay, HOST and AME. This is the Z2 machine. Okay, the machine which got enrolled via group policy. How it got enrolled, I will demonstrate that later. But let me just do this rsop.msc, and we are seeing the resultant set of group policies, a resultant set of policies coming down to this device. And I'll just quickly show you that this device got the group policy that we made, and that result triggered the enrollment. So if I go into the administrative template Windows component, then I can see that there is a policy called MDM, which is coming down to the device. And what is this doing? Enable automatic MDM enrollment using default Azure AD credential. It is currently set to enabled. This is the policy that is coming down to the device. How was this policy created? Where was this policy created? We'll do all of that. But I just wanted to show you guys a working set of device. So in this working set of device, you can see that this policy came down, and then this device got enrolled. All right, so I have the enrollment logs open as well at the background, and you can see that it says MDM enrollment succeeded. This happened when the group policy came down. And what also happened was there was a bunch of scheduled tasks which were created. As you can see at the background, there were a bunch of scheduled tasks which were created, which were running the device enroller.exe. So I just don't want to jump on the bandwagon here. So what I'm going to do is, first I wanted to show you this Z2 machine. Now what I intend to show you is the domain controller, and then we are going to spin up a new virtual machine. We are going to join it to the domain, and then we will track it all from scratch. Okay. So this is my domain controller. This is my DC. Okay. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a group policy. So for me to create a group policy, I mean, there is just one group policy that needs to be created. I've already created one. So let me just show you. Let me just edit it and show it to you guys. So if I click on edit, what I have to do is I have to go to computer configuration, policies, administrative template, Windows component, and then there is a node called MDM. Okay, I have to go to this node. When I come to this node, there is, by default, you will see this option which says enable automatic MDM enrollment using default Azure AD credential. And by default, it will not be enabled. I have to double click on it, and I have to click on, by default, it will be at not configured state. What I'm going to do, I'm going to click on enabled. When you click on enable, it gives you two options: user credential or device credential. What this means is, first let's just understand what's the difference between these two. If I select user credential over here, then it means that the enrollment is going to be triggered using the credential of the logged in user. Okay. And if there is no logged in user at that point of time, or if there is a logged in user who does not have a EMS license assigned to him, then we can also use the device credential option. However, please note, as on today, the device credential option for enrollment does not work with Intune. Okay, so the recommendation is making use of the user credential. So all you will have to do, guys, is just open up the group policy editor. And once you open the group policy editor, you have to come down to this MDM node. Again, just to show you guys, it is under computer configuration, policies, administrative template, Windows component, and MDM. Okay, and then you have to enable this. In many cases, you will actually not be seeing this MDM component. You will not be seeing this node. So for that, what you'll have to do, you will have to actually install an ADMX. So now let me just show you where did I get this ADMX from. So let me just do this. Very simple. You just have to go to Google and go to our official documentation. So just type in Windows auto enrollment. Oh, come on. Enrollment plus group policy. Okay, and then just open up the first link that comes up, which is referring to docs.microsoft.com. This is actually illustrating the entire process. I'm not just going to go through the entirety. Okay, and over here you can see that option which I was talking about, device credential and user credential. Device credential is a new option. However, it does not work as of now, so the recommendation is making use of the user credential. And the point that I wanted to show you guys, we will discuss all of these later, but this is the point that I wanted to explain. So it says that if you do not see the policy, that is, if you do not see the MDM node, which I also did not see by default, then we will have to download and install an ADMX. Okay, so links are over here. So if I'm running with 1803, so the links are over here. If I'm running with 1803, we just have to click on this link. If I'm running with 1809, I just have to click on this link. So let me just open this in a new tab, and it will give me the option of downloading this ADMX. Okay, so all I have to do is just click on download, and once I download it, this is the ADMX which I already have. Okay, so let me just do this. After I download it, there are a couple of steps that needs to be followed. Okay, so you have to download it and install it in the domain controller. Once you have installed it in the domain controller, there are a couple of things that you have to do. So yeah, it says that install the package on the domain controller. I have already installed it. Then it says that navigate depending upon the version that you have installed. You can install either 1803 or 1809. It's backward compatible. So I installed the 1809 one. So what I have to do, I have to go to C drive, program files, Microsoft Windows, Microsoft group policy, Windows 10. So let me just go to that location. So I'm going to C drive, program files x86, and then Microsoft group policy, and then this folder will be created automatically. And then there is a folder called policy definition. Okay, I just have to copy this folder from here. It says over here that rename the extracted folder policy definition folder to policy definitions. So what I'll have to do, I'll just have to rename it and then just remove the space. Okay, it has been renamed. Now just copy this folder and then you have to paste it to C drive, Windows sysvol domain policies. So now I have to go to C drive, Windows, where is sysvol? There you are, domain policies, and I just have to paste it over here, which I already have pasted. Why do we have to do this step? As I mentioned, by default you might not see this MDM option in the group policy. So what we'll have to do, we have to download and install an ADMX. What is a ADMX? So I mean, what ADMX does is, by default, when you're making a group policy, you might not have a lot of options. So what that ADMX does is, when you import and integrate that ADMX into your domain controller, like we did in our sysvol folder, it gives you more options. So you have ADMX for Citrix. So if you integrate that ADMX into your domain controller, then you will magically start seeing options of managing Citrix as well using your domain controller, using your group policy. So that is what ADMX is doing for you in short. So what I'm trying to say is, if this MDM folder is not there, you just have to install that ADMX, download it from that link, and then copy that policy definition folder onto that sysvol, reboot the domain controller. Once you reboot it, you will be able to see this MDM option in the group policy. Once you see this MDM option, you just have to double click on it and click on enable and then click on user credential. Once you've done that, your group policy is ready. So once the group policy is has been created, all that needs to be done is, it now needs to be assigned to a organizational unit. Okay, so I have actually made this policy at the domain level. You necessarily don't have to make it at a domain level. You can make it as a you can make a default group policy object and then just assign it to a OU wherein you want to replicate the things from. Okay. So as of now, what we have done is we have just created. So now what I'm going to do is I am going to shut down my Z2 machine. Okay. I just wanted to show it to you that how a working state of a machine looks like. So now I have another machine Z3. This machine is in the work group. So we are going to do everything on this machine from scratch. We are first going to join it to the domain, and then we are going to log into it, and then it's going to get the group policy, and then we are going to see whether it gets enrolled or not automatically. Okay, there is before that happens, there is one more thing that I wanted to discuss, and it's very important, and that is, since our on-prem domain right now is not verified, there is something that we need to do, and that is called adding a UPN suffix. Okay guys, so my machine is up. So the first thing that we need to do is that this machine obviously needs to be in the intranet, right? I mean, it needs to be able to join. I mean, we are going to join this machine to the on-prem domain, which means that it needs to have a private NIC, right? And we are going to enroll this machine as well. So since since via my private NIC it won't be able to reach out to the internet, I am going to provide it one more NIC which is going to facilitate its internet connectivity. You necessarily don't have to do that in your on-prem domain via the private NIC. If you have opened the ports the device needs to leverage in order to get itself enrolled, then only one NIC would suffice. But in this case, that's not going to help. Therefore, I'm going to add two NICs. One is the private NIC, and I'm going to add one more hardware, and that is going to use the default switch. Okay, so it has got two NICs, one via the private switch which it is going to use to communicate with the domain controller, and one the default switch which it is going to use when it needs to reach out to the Intune service and get itself enrolled. Okay, so my machine is up. Let me just do this. Let me just do a little house cleaning job. So first I'm going to, okay, so it's already renamed to Z3, which is good. Now let me just take a look over its IP address. Just need to make sure it's in the same range. Yeah, okay, looks good. And this is the internet NIC, and let me just see if it's able to ping the DC 10.10.10.1. It's able to ping the DC, and I am going to make sure that the firewall is off. Okay, cool. So now I am going to ping demo.com. It's able to ping the domain controller. So now I am going to join this machine to the domain. Okay. Once this machine is joined to the domain, it is going to get the group policy. However, please note, however, at this point of time, the device cannot be auto-enrolled using group policy, because a prerequisite for the group policy to work is that the device needs to be hybrid Azure AD joined. And as of this moment, this device is not hybrid Azure AD joined. So if I go into the portal and if I go to Azure AD devices and if I run a search for Z, I would be able to see Z2, which is hybrid Azure AD joined, but Z3 is not hybrid Azure AD joined. I don't see any entry of that device over here. Okay, so the first thing that needs to happen is that this device needs to be hybrid Azure AD joined. And how does a device become hybrid Azure AD joined? Once it is joined to the on-prem domain, then the Azure AD Connect tool is going to do a hybrid Azure AD join for it using the service connection point that it creates. Okay, so let me just join it to the on-prem domain first. I am going to go into change, and then domain, I'm going to name it demo.com. I'm joining it to this domain, and then shilds password. Okay, let's see here. Okay, it has been joined to the on-prem domain. Now I'm going to do a restart of this device. And while this device undergoes a restart, I'm going to go back to the domain controller, and I am going to do a dsa.msc, and I am going to go into computers, and then I'm able to see a computer called Z3, right? I'm able to see a computer called Z3. So now I'm going to run a sync using PowerShell. Okay, so the command is okay, start -ad sync cycle. Okay, so just ran a sync. So what this sync is going to do, it is going to sync all the users from the on-prem domain to the Azure. Since I have also enabled hybrid Azure AD join, so let me just show you how I enable a hybrid Azure AD join. So I'm going to, once you have installed the Azure AD Connect tool, you just have to double click on Azure AD Connect over here and then click on configure and then configure device options, next, and then next, and then just enter the username and password, and just enter the username and password, and it should prompt us to enter the, yes, so this is the option which says that configure hybrid Azure AD join. You just have to click on next and then next. Over here it shows you about that service connection point which it creates. It's asking me for enterprise admin credential, so I'm going to enter Shields and its password, and then next. Okay. Yes, we're good. Verifying the synchronization. Okay, everything is fine. Okay, I just can click on exit. Let me just run the sync one more time. It usually takes time running of this sync, and hybrid Azure AD join takes time. So I'm going to be patient on this. Start -ad sync cycle. Okay, so I'm not expecting the sync to happen instantly, but yeah, I mean, let me just run a refresh. Okay, so yeah, the sync did run, and it didn't take. Sometimes, I mean, uh, depending upon your connectivity and depending upon how many objects you have on your on-prem domain, it might or might not take a lot of time. In my case, I just had, I mean, my domain does not have a lot of resources, right? Therefore the sync was almost instantaneous. So now my device is hybrid Azure AD joined. Okay, so the prereqs are met. Now let me just go into the domain controller and show you guys the group policy again. So this is the group policy that I have created. If I right click and do an edit, then I have an option of editing whatever I want to edit. So I am going to go into policies and then administrative templates and then Windows component. As I said, by default you won't be seeing the MDM option. Now I do. I just have to double click on the MDM option, and then on the right hand side you see there is something called disable MDM enrollment and there is something called enable MDM enrollment. I just have to click on enable and then select the user option. Okay, once I do that, I had temporarily disabled this. Let me just go to GPO status and then enable this option. Okay, so now this group policy is enabled. If you want to make use of something called security filtering, you might as well do that as well. I usually do it. You necessarily don't have to. Uh, 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 Sorry. Uh, all right. This security filtering option is just option. It's just how you manage your group policy. The end goal here is you have to create a group policy and assign it to OU wherein that computer object is present. And as I said, you might have to install that administrative ADMX and then copy that policy definition folder to sysvol and reboot the domain controller for you to see that MDM option. Okay. That's the first thing. The second thing that I wanted to show you guys was adding something called a UPN suffix. Okay, so how to do that? Again, I am going to go to Google and type add UPN suffix in AD. Okay, very simple. All you have to do is you have to go into Active Directory domains and trusts, and from there you have to add it. First, let me show you how to add it, and then I will explain why you have to do it. Okay, so I'm going to go into Active Directory and then Active Directory users. You have to go into Active Directory domains and trusts and then the properties, right? So Active Directory domains and trusts. and then we have to right click over here and then the properties, and over here you have an option of adding a UPN suffix. So by default this will not be there, but you have an option of adding a UPN suffix. So all you'll have to do is you'll have to add the UPN suffix you want to add and then click on add over here. So right now, as you see, I just have added this UPN suffix, right? Doesn't make any sense. What this would do is any user that you have, if you go into the accounts option, you can change the suffix of the user to, let me just see if I create a new user, new user. Over here, I'm supposed to get that other drop down as well. I think it's taking some time. All right. Oh, okay, because I have not clicked on apply. Done. Okay, all right. So if I have a user, if I go into accounts in the drop down, I can see that suffix over here, right? So this is the usage. Why we need it, we will talk about that in a while. Before I tell you why we need it, let me just remove this vague suffix that I created. Okay, yes, apply. Okay, all right. So now what I need to do is I need to create a suffix over here. I need to come into Active Directory domains and trust and I have to create a suffix over here. Okay. The reason why we need to create a suffix is my on-prem domain is not verified. So if I have a user in my on-prem domain called a.demo.com, so my on-prem domain is demo.com, right? So my user is a.demo.com. By default, you will only have demo.com, right? So if I create a user A, let me just do it for you guys. Let me just create a new user and I'm going to call this user A. Okay. And the last name is nothing. The logon name is A. So by default, the user is going to be named as a@demo.com. Okay. So let me just create this user. And then I'm going to say that password never expires. Next, and then finish. So when this user A syncs with Azure, then it is going to add a by default suffix to it, which is going to be @nuggetlabs.onmicrosoft.com or something like that. Let me just show it to you guys what I'm talking about in case you have made use of the Azure AD Connect tool, you would be understanding the point I'm trying to make. So start -AD sync cycle. Okay, so this sync is done. So A should be synced momentarily. So once the sync happens, let me just show you guys what you will see over here. So if I go into users and if I go into all users, then I will be seeing a user called A, and its on-prem name was a@demo.com. But over here, I will be seeing something like this, a@nuggetlabs.onmicrosoft.com. Okay, because my on-prem domain is not verified. So if I assign a license, so obviously there is only two prerequisite for this hybrid automatic enrollment to work, right? As we discussed, the first prerequisite is that the device needs to be hybrid Azure AD joined. The second prerequisite is that the logged in user needs to have a EMS license assigned to him, right? But I cannot assign the EMS license to a@demo.com. Why? Let me just show it to you guys. So if I run a refresh, so A is here. But A's username, the complete name is a@nuggetlabs.onmicrosoft.com. It is not a@demo.com. So what is going to happen is if I assign a license to this user, when I go into that device, I cannot log in using a@nuggetlabs.onmicrosoft.com because the device is not Azure AD joined. I can only log into it using a@demo.com. Okay, but the license is assigned to it's essentially the same user, but since the domain is not verified, it is actually not going to work. So for that, the hack is, if you don't have a verified on-premise domain, then what you can do, you can create a user. let me just create a user called B. Okay, and this time what I'm going to do, I am going to select the UPN suffix @everything about intune.com. Okay, this is the UPN suffix that I'm going to use. Okay, so I just created a user called B, and let me just run the sync again, and then I'll tell you what is the difference between A and B. Start hyphen. I mean, this though is out of the scope of Intune, but I just wanted to make a point that if you're doing this in your lab, this is something that probably you will have to take care of, else it will not really work. So there is this UPN suffix which you need to create. I think the sync has already been done. Let me just run a refresh. It might take a couple of minutes. Let me just run the command here again. Okay, cool. So over here you can see that for B, the suffix is B @everything about intune.com, which is my tenant as well, Greg's @everything about intune.com, because I have purchased this domain, so I can make a user as nuggetlabs.microsoft.com or everything about intune.com. If I didn't have this, so for you, what you'll have to do, long story short, you will have to go to your on-prem domain and you will have to create a UPN suffix called nuggetlabs.onmicrosoft.com or whatever your tenant is. Once you do that, once that user syncs to the Azure, it is going to have the same UPN suffix. So now what is happening is, if I go into the Z3 device, the advantages, let me just show it to you. The user B is not created in b@demo.com. The user B is created in b@everythingaboutintune.com. So what I can do is I can go into connect and come on, come on. Okay. I can go to connect and I can log in using b@everything. Come on. b@. Okay. Okay, so what I did not do was add that user to the COMP. Let me just show it to you. So what I'll also have to do is, before I log in, I'll have to go into groups and then administrators, and then I'll have to add B to this group. Oh, come on, what's it this? Well, obviously, if I'm going to log in using B needs to have access to this machine, right? I mean, it goes without saying. So B has access to this machine now. And the point that I was trying to make was, if I log into this machine using B, I will be able to do that. But before I do that, let me just assign licenses to B. So I'm going to go into, first I'll have to assign a usage location. So I am going to go, I'm working from India. So I select India over here. Okay. And then I go to licenses, wait for a couple of seconds, and then assign the licenses. Okay, so the licenses are here, right? So what I was talking about, the advantage of adding the UPN suffix was, now I can log into this machine as b@everything about intune.com and then the password. If I did not add the UPN suffix, then I could only log in as b@demo.com, and once b@demo.com syncs to Azure, it becomes b@nuggetlabs.onmicrosoft.com, and that's where I'm assigning the license, right? But I cannot log into this machine as b@nuggetlabs.onmicrosoft.com. Hence, I have to create that UPN suffix. Okay, so I hope that creating the UPN suffix is now making sense. All right. So now this machine. So now let's just talk about what we have done until now and what is pending. So name of the machine is Z3. Is the machine hybrid AD joined? The machine is hybrid AD joined. Is the PRT yes or no? We have to check on that. So I'm not exactly sure whether the primary refresh token is showing as yes or no. We'll check how, we'll see how to check that. But the primary refresh token in the device needs to be yes. Okay. And UPN suffix created, yes. GPO created, yes. GPO applied, yes. Okay. So all the prereqs are met. I'm logged into the machine using a user who has the license assigned, and LIC license assigned. Yes. Okay. Everything is in place. I just have to check for whether the device has got a PRT or not. So I'm going to go into CMD and then run the command dsreg, or let me just do this. CMD. Always a good idea to run it as an admin, right? dsreg cmd /status, and the Azure AD PRT is currently set to yes. Okay, so everything is in place now. So now the expectation is once the group policy comes down to the device, the group policy should do its magic, right? So let me just do a rsop.msc now and then see whether my policy is coming down to the device yet or not. Okay. And I'm not going to do a manual enrollment. I'm not going to go into start and then settings and do any kind of enrollment like that. So I'm going to go into Windows. Sorry. I'm going to go into Windows settings. Okay, so the policy has not come down yet. The policy has not come down yet. While we wait for the policy to come down, let me just open up the event viewer as well and the task scheduler as well. So we are going to monitor the event viewer and the task scheduler, and we are going to see what is the change that happens and when is the change that happens. Okay, before I do that, let me just open up a better open this up in a better way. Okay, there you go. Okay, all right. So one more thing that I would like to do is switch off the firewall. I don't want the firewall to mess with anything, right? So I'm going to turn it off. Okay, okay, and then I'm going to open up the scheduled task scheduler, and then once the group policy comes down to this device, you will see that a node gets created under below EDP. Okay, so right now you can see that when I'm coming into this location, Microsoft Windows, I don't see anything below EDP over here, right? Because right now the policy has not come down to the device. And if I check the Windows logs, if I go to application and services, Microsoft Windows, and then the same location, I see that there is no log for enrollment as of now, right? Let me see here. So you'll be seeing the default event ID of 813, which is always there. Okay. So I don't see anything else. I see something called 833. Let me see what that is. Okay, so right now the policy has not come down to the device, hence we don't see any information under device management enterprise diagnostic provider or under the task scheduler. So over here we don't see anything, right? We just see DUSM, EDP, and then exploit guard, right? So what I'm going to do now is probably go to command prompt and then type gp update space slash force. And then I'm going to wait for the policy to come down to the device. Okay, guys, so I am still waiting. I'm still waiting for anything to happen. So let me just run up the rsop.msc once again and then see if anything changed. If it did, then I should be able. So the resultant set of policies will actually show whether the group policy that we created came down to this device or not, right? So that is what I am expecting to see. And yes, now I can see that there is something called administrative template under which we made the group policy. If I expand this, if I go to Windows component, I can see MDM. So this is the policy that we created, right? So enable automatic MDM enrollment using default Azure AD credential. This is the policy that we created. It's set to enable, and it is obviously grayed out because I don't have an option of making any changes here, right? Okay, so far so good. So let me just go back to the task scheduler and then run a refresh here. I'm expecting something to happen here. And I want to refresh the logs as well. So where I see one error, don't know what that is. And I see a lot of logs right now over here. So you can see that something is happening. It is trying to reach out to the endpoints. If I expand this Windows and then okay, so earlier you saw that there was something called DUSM and then EDP, right? And then there was exploit guard. This node was not there, enterprise management, but now this node is there. So let me just make a note of this timestamp. So let me just make a note of this log itself so that the next time we are checking the next log, we know until where we have already seen, right? Okay, cool. Okay, so over here you see that there is this node which has been created called enterprise management. If I expand it, you can see that there are a whole lot of scheduled tasks created inside of it. So over here you can see, let me just expand the first one. So by default, the first one that gets created is I don't remember which is the first one that gets created, but there are a lot of scheduled tasks which will be created. You can see there is something called scheduled one created by enrollment client, scheduled two, schedule three. There are a lot of scheduled tasks created. And if I go into the actions, you can see that the first one is running device enroller.exe. The second one is also running device enroller.exe. You will see one of them runs the Mdm client.exe. Over here you are seeing that Mdm client.exe. So what is happening is just again a rundown. The device was hybrid Azure AD joined, and I logged into the device using a credential which had the EMS license assigned to it, and the UPN suffix was correctly set up. When that happened, when I logged into the device got the RSOP. When we ran the rsop.msc, and we were able to see that the device got the group policy. As the device was already hybrid Azure AD joined, a scheduled task was created. This node got created, and a bunch of scheduled tasks got created, and they were responsible for running the device enroller.exe and Mdm client.exe, and this is supposed to do the enrollment of the device. So the last log that we checked was as on let me just see the timestamp. So this was as on 12:01, right? Let me just go back here and then run a refresh, and then I'm going to go down to 12:01. Yes, so these were the logs where we were at. So if I keep on going up, I will be able to see a log for successful enrollment of a device. So I'm looking for something with an event ID of 72. If the device is already enrolled. Yeah, there you go. This was the one I'm looking for. Mdm enrollment succeeded at 12:00:37. Okay, so now if I go into the portal, and if I go into Microsoft Intune devices, all devices, I should be able to see Z3 over here as well, which has been enrolled using b@everythingabountintune.com. And the device is syncing. If I go into Azure AD devices, if I type for Z, well, obviously there will be two entries, Z2 and Z3. You can see that the device is enabled, OS is Windows, device is hybrid Azure already joined, which it already was. The MDM field is also now populated, which it wasn't earlier, because the device is now enrolled to Intune automatically, and the device is compliant, and this is the registered state and whatnot. Okay. All right. So now if I show you guys the registry as well, the registry will be the same. The registry option that we see. So HKLM, software, Microsoft, and then enrollments. Over here, we see a lot of nodes. One of them is, it's the first one in this case is the one that we are concerned about. The rest will not be populated. And in this case also, we see the UPN used to enroll as foo user. So that as we have already discussed, foo user is something that you see in case of enrollment via group policy, or in case of enrollment via the SCCM client. Okay. Don't get confused by this config manager enrollment. The device does not have the config manager. So yeah, you see that there is no config manager agent in this. Okay. All right. And one last thing, if I go into start and then settings over here, now obviously I'll be able to see a entry of this device showing that the device is now enrolled, right? I can sync it. I can see it is getting a device lock policy. Is it really getting a device lock policy? Maybe. All right. So now I have an option of creating that MDM report as well, right? Which goes into C drive users public documents. So let me just go to C drive users public documents, and then the MDM DAG report will be there. I can just open up the report and take a look over how this device is doing. What are the policies that are coming down to this device? There's some office. Nope. No, this is what I'm supposed to look at. Password enabled. Okay, so there is some device restriction policy which has been set for a Windows 10 device. Let me just check it in the portal. Do I even have any? Well, there are so many of them, right? So all right, anyways, so well, I mean, this is what I wanted to illustrate, guys, how to enroll a device using group policy. So it's really useful if you have, let's just say, 1000 devices. All you have to do is, I mean, if you have a verified domain, then that UPN suffix is something that does not need to be done. All that needs to be done is just go to Azure AD Connect and then select that hybrid Azure AD Join option, Once you do that, your devices will sync up to Azure and you will be able to see that the devices are hybrid Azure AD joined. And then just go to that group policy and make sure you're creating the group policy correctly. And okay, UPN suffix, we have already spoken about this. I can just close this one. Uh, Group policy, yeah. So group policy is, I mean, as I've already said, this is something you can create at the OU level. I just wish to create it at the domain level. Therefore, you see it this way, and Windows component and sorry, policies, administrative template, and then Windows component and then MDM. As I've already said, if you don't see this option, just install the ADMX template and do what you got to do. And then policy comes down, the device is enrolled. Once the device is enrolled, you can push down any policies that you would in case of a normal enrolled device as well. This is just a more seamless solution of enrolling a whole bunch of devices from Intune. Okay guys, so now what we are going to see is how to enroll a device using company portal application or from the website. Okay, so I'm going to log into this device, and this device hostname, sorry, CMD hostname. This device is called Z2. Right now, I do not have any device which is named as Z2 in my portal. So I just unenrolled it. So I might as well delete it from the portal. Okay, cool. So I'm going to go into the Internet Explorer and I am going to go into portal.manage.microsoft.com, which is what you would call a web version of the company portal. And once it opens up, I'll try and enroll it. Okay. And then we will see how to do this, how to do the same using a web link when it opens up. So while this happens, let me just go back to Microsoft Intune, devices, Azure AD devices, and let me just remove the entry for Z2 because now you can see under enabled it shows as no, compliant no, because the device is now unenrolled. All right, cool. Okay. I don't know why it's taking so damn long. Okay, all right. So I'm entering my username. I'm entering my password here. And once I'm logged in, over here, it says that you do not have any apps published. If I go into devices, I don't have any device which has been enrolled using this account, okay? But if I click over here, I have an option of enrolling a device, enrolling this device. So if I click on add, let's see, let me just do an allow. And then it's going to ask me for the username and password like it would. This is equivalent to going into start and then settings and then entering the username and password and enrolling a device from there. Instead of doing that, we are going into portal.manage.microsoft.com. Instead of doing that, what we can also do is we can go into the store and download the company portal application, log into it, and then try to enroll it. So more or less, it's the same thing. So let me just show you guys both of them side by side. I know that my internet is running very, very slow for some reason. Okay, so company portal. Yeah, company portal app. So on the left hand side, you see that it's asking me for the username and password. gregus@nuggetlabs.onmicrosoft.com, and then I have to enter the password, and then the device will eventually end up getting enrolled. Or I can leverage the company portal app, and this is equivalent to enrolling a Android or an iOS device. When we install the app, we log into it, and then we enroll it. Okay, so I just closed that one because once the device is enrolled, I'll have to unenroll it. I don't need to necessarily sign in. It will still download the application for me. So I'm just going to click on install. I'm not going to sign into it. Come on. Has the installation begun? I don't think. Okay, acquiring license. Okay. We really don't need to sign into the company portal app. We really don't need to sign into the to the Microsoft Store in order to download the company portal app. So that is why I was clicking on cancel each time. I really didn't want to sign into it. So let me see if the company portal app actually gets downloaded and then installed. Once it does, we'll be enrolling it in the usual way. Okay, so you see now that the company portal app has been installed. So I really want to enroll this device and show you guys how to do it via company portal rather than from the website, even though it does the same thing more I mean, okay. So at the background, it says that signing in. So, so all you have to do over here is sign in and then enroll the usual way you'll be enrolling an Android or an iOS device. That's all. I mean, there is no catch to it. And then let me just show you guys the enrollment via the deep link as well, since there is nothing much to be done. So all that has to be done is we have to copy this and then we have to go to the all right, so I just copied it. If I go into the Explorer and if I type this and I do allow, it actually opens up the same thing again as you saw in the screenshot, right? So it's the same thing which you see when you click on access work or school. So what you can do is you can just provide this link as a hyperlink to the end users. So the end users won't have to go to start and then settings, or they won't have to go into portal.manage.microsoft.com. You can just drop them an email, give this as a hyperlink. They just click on this and press an enter and then click on allow, and this page opens up, and all they have to do is that just enter the username and password and it works fine, right? So read everything about intune.com and then the password. Okay, allow my device, yes, and then the enrollment should go all the way through and the device should get enrolled. So let me see here. So many ways, more or less doing the same thing. So let me just close all of this. Over here, you can see that the Azure Ad registration of the device is happening just like it would if you were doing via normal start and then settings. I can close all these now. So the Azure Ad registration will happen and then the device will be enrolled to Intune. Okay guys, so now you see that the enrollment is done. I just have to click on done here. And now if I go into start settings, accounts, over here I also see that the device is enrolled. And if I go into the portal, I should be able to see the device over there as well. So if I do a refresh, rightly enough, I see Z2 over here as well. And once the device is enrolled, everything else is the same. So if I go into Reg edit, under enrollments, I see the same value is populated. Right, that one. And over here, since we did not do via group policy or Secm, we see the username, right? Cool. Now, all right. So the logs, we have already seen the event via logs. We have already seen the MDM diag log and the registry location and the MDM enrollment. If it is successful, then we see that it ends with, I mean, one of the log is 72, which says that MDM enrollment is successful, right? Okay, so what we did not talk about in this case was enrollment via co-management. So there is a separate nugget on enrollment via co-management wherein I have demonstrated how SCCM client does the enrollment for us, and if we have enabled co-management and added the device in a specific device collection, where it gets a policy from SCCM, which more or less does the same thing. I mean, it uses the user credential or the device credential. And in that case, the device credential enrollment does happen. So you guys might want to refer to that nugget of SECM enrollment, which talks about how that is established. But other than that, I think that is pretty much it. I mean, this is all that I wanted to illustrate on this. I know this has been a pretty long one, but the intent was knowing the difference between what Azure AD registration, Azure AD join, hybrid Azure AD join, enroll only in device management is, how we can troubleshoot issues related to group policy enrollment, how that happens, how it is set up, what logs to check, what registry to check, and a demonstration of all of them, right? So that's pretty much it, guys. I hope that I was able to touch on most of the points. I am planning on doing a level 200 kind of a video for Windows enrollment as well, wherein what we can do is we can probably capture a Wireshark trace or a network trace during the enrollment phase itself. And if the enrollment fails, or if the enrollment does not fail, in that case also we can analyze those traces and see what are the endpoints to which the device is reaching out to when it is undergoing an enrollment. So if the enrollment is failing, we can compare it with a working set of log or working set of fiddler trace or Wireshark trace, and then see what is the difference in between the two. But yeah, that is something that I'm planning to do later on. This was a level 100 kind of a video wherein I wanted to familiarize all of us with Windows enrollment, the ways of doing it, how to set it up, and how it really works with Intune. That's pretty much it, guys. I hope that this has been informative for you. I would like to thank you for viewing. This is your friend Saurabh Sarkar signing off.